Chapter 1. Beginning Road to Domination. Hello everyone. This is the first story I ever wrote and I hope you enjoy it as much as I had written it. Special thanks to A Golden Lion for his help and Dazazel for beta reading it and helping in my grammar trouble. I do not own High School DxD. That right goes to its creator. Chapter 1. How it all began. You aren't running away, you bitch, roared Issei to Yuma, Rainier, who was trying to fly away with her wings. No, get away from me, you monster, shouted Rainier as Issei took hold of her leg with his left hand covered in a crimson-red gauntlet and brought her closer to him. This is for Asia, you fallen crow. And with one massive punch, Issei punched her into the wall with his right hand. Rainier hit the wall with a lot of force to break it and fly out in the backyard of the church. With his opponent defeated, Issei fell to the ground only to be caught. Kiba. Yo, Casanova, you're late, said Issei to Kiba. Sorry, Issei. President orders were to not intervene, said Kiba. Prez told you that, said a shocked Issei. Yes, I told Kiba not to intervene because I have full confidence that you could take her down on your own, said Rias as she entered the basement with her queen Akeno. And I must say excellent job, my adorable pawn, said Rias. Era, it looks like Issei did a good job, said Akeno with a smile on her face and a lick of her lips that sent a little shiver down Issei's spine. Thanks, Akeno, said Issei to Akeno as she smiled happily. President. I brought the trash, said the small white-haired girl as she throws the unconscious form of the fallen angel on the floor in front of the group. Thank you, Kaneko. Now Akeno, what do you say about waking up our little jest? Said Rias as she thanked her rook and asked her queen. Yes, President. Splash Rainier was immediately awakened after the cold water hit her body. She looks around, the sight front of her made her blood chill and her body to shake in fear. Ooh, you are finally awake, I see. Well, introductions are in order. I'm Rias Gremory, the heiress of the Gremory clan, and these are my adorable servants. You already know my pawn. The others are my queen Akeno, rook Kaneko, and the knight Kiba. Not that was necessary because you're not going to live for long, said Rias to the shocked Rainier. Gremory, you think you won just because you're here with your servants. There are other fallen angels here with me. They will soon come to hell. They won't come to help you because my queen and I finished them off before coming here. I think you can recognize these feathers. You fallen can see the difference in them from who they are, can't you? Rias stopped the fallen in mid-sentence. Terror overtook Rainier as she saw feathers of her fallen comrades and allies Calawarner, Donasic and Middlet in the hands of Crisman-haired Princess of Destruction. You want to know why you lost to this boy, fallen angel Rainier? Asked Rias as she looks in the purple eyes of the shaking Rainier. The answer to that is very simple. His sacred gear isn't a twice critical. It's the booster gear, the gauntlet of the Red Dragon of Domination, aka the Red Dragon Emperor, explained Rias as Rainier stared at her before her eyes turns to Issei. Why yo, you are saying that the legendary and one of the most powerful sacred gears in the world is in the hands of this pervert? Shouted Rainier in disbelief. Yes, it is, and just as it was told, it has the power to double one's strength every 10 seconds, and even if given the time he can boost himself to the power that can reach the power of the Mouse and God, said Rias calmly. Now that explanation is over, it's time to wrap things up here and go home. But first, we need to return Twilight healing that you stole from cute little Asia, so prepare yourself. This is the end of you, fallen angel Rainier. You made a lot of trouble for my adorable little pawn and his friend. As she said that, in her hand black orb of destruction started to gather in volume. Just before she was to fire the magic that can destroy anything, a new voice made itself known. Me, here, shouted a very unwelcome guest. Fried, save me, I will do anything, just get me out of here, shouted Rainier at Fried, who took time to think about it. Anything? I always wanted to have sex with a fallen angel. Yes, that would be a good price for saving you, said Fried in his relaxed tone. Don't be an idiot and save me already, you buffoon, yelled Rainier back as she was getting really angry at the laid-back priest while her life was at stake. No sex. No save. Even if I try, I can't beat all of them together, so I will leave you. Have fun, said Fried as he looked around till he spotted Issei and had a large smile on his face. Issei, you have such beautiful power with you. I'm getting more and more excited about killing you. So when we see each other again, let's have a beautiful and romantic fight to the death. Okay, said Fried with a wink, making Issei shiver from clear bloodlust that the crazy priest has. Bye-bye, have fun with her," said Fried before running away from the group. "Now Rainier, it's time to finish this," said Rias now that the crazy priest was gone. Rainier for her part was trembling out of fear now that her one way out was gone. She looked around and saw her last bit of hope to get out of here alive. "Issei, help me, please help me," Rainier said in her Yuma voice that was even more pleading. "Why should I help you? You deceived and killed me and now you did the same to Asia. Why should I help you?" said Issei with his head down, hair hiding his eyes. Although he still felt bad for her, even though she did kill him, she was still his first girlfriend. "Please Issei, I will do anything. Anything just helps me. Together we can beat those devils," Rainier said with her eyes full of tears. She still had little hope that she can manipulate Issei into helping her. "That's enough of you, fallen angel. I will not allow you to manipulate even more my cute adorable servant's emotions, is that understood?" said Rias as she put her hand on Issei's shoulder, which made him a little calmer. Seeing this, Rainier understood what had happened and how Issei was back to the land of the living after she blasted a hole in his guts. She saw literally last chance of saving her. "Issei, how can you trust her?" Rainier said to Issei, who lifted his head to look at her like she had grown a second head. "She is my master, she saved me," Issei simply stated. "Ooh, and how that came about?" asked Rainier now that she felt a little bit of her confidence coming back. All devils tense at that full well how it came about and that it would lead to catastrophe if Issei found out. After all, even the newly awakened Red Dragon Emperor can be a destructive force that can easily destroy Kuo if he unlocks Juggernaut Drive and let his emotions run wild. Issei didn't see the devils behind him tense at the question and answered the question easily. "If you must know, after you blown my guts and left me to die, President came and saved my life and revived me as her pawn." That was all that Rainier need to press advantage on the devils and use Issei as her way out. "Then why didn't she tell you earlier and save you when she had a chance before I killed you?" asked the Fallen. That simple sentence made the devils even tenser and left Issei for the loop. "What are you blabbing about, Rainier?" asked the brunette in confusion, still not knowing what the Fallen in front of him is saying. "It's simple, Issei. That redhead knows who and what I was doing here in her territory. She could have helped you too and easily stopped me, but she let you die so she can revive you to add you to her collection," explained Rainier, now feeling that she only needs a little push and she would have Issei on her side and get out. She knew that Issei was emotionally damaged after what happened between them and she planned to take advantage of him now. Issei was known even more confused. It didn't make any sense to him. Why would Rias, a girl he admires, leave him to die? Sure, he was the biggest pervert in history, but still, that didn't mean to just let him die. Issei just stood there with eyes wide and not knowing what was happening. But when he turned to Rias and the others, his was even more surprised that Rias and other looked like they were caught red-handed. "Guys, is she lying?" the brunette asked. "What I'm telling is truth, Issei. I may have betrayed your trust and killed you, but I never lied to you, unlike some people here," Rainier said to him in the most sincerest voice she could muster. "I really loved and had a lot of fun on our date, but orders are orders, I hope you know that, right?" Issei was now betrayed and heartbroken even more. He really didn't want to believe what the foul Fallen was saying, but a small part of him was telling him that what she was saying was true and that she was right. "WWHY?" he asked in completely stunned and hesitant voice. "It's very simple, Issei. It's the very same reason I had to kill you. Because of the sacred gear you possess," said Rainier with a grin as she pointed with her hand at red gauntlet that was on Issei's left arm. "Is it what she says the truth?" There was no response. Akeno, Kiba, and Kaneko had their heads bowed down, having no answer and refusing to look into the brunette's eyes. That left Issei empty with his will broken, and now the anger and rage that was inside him started to release a lot of aura around unintentionally. He started to feel even more powerful with each second. He was getting angrier and it started to showing to others. He was going to get answers. Why was he left to die? And why he was again being manipulated. Rias finally got over her shock, wanting to end this quickly before it goes even worse. She felt that the seals that she put on Issei on his revival to keep his full power at bay were start to break, and he was slowly getting to his full power. So she stepped in front of the broken form of Rainier with her demonic energy gathering in her hand. "Fallen angel Rainier, you have done enough damage with your words and actions. You played with my adorable little pawn's emotions for the final time," Rias informed the Fallen with a cold and dangerous voice. That was enough to break Issei out of his thoughts. As he turned around, he was met with the sight that was telling him that if he doesn't do something, he wasn't going to get any answers. begun Rainier the Say when she felt that her doom was at hand. As the demonic energy in Ria's hand grows, Rainier tried one last time to make him do anything. Issei. In that moment Issei finally decided to stop this and he stood in front of the fallen with his hands spread out, surprising everyone present. What are you doing? Move so I can end this filth, said a surprised Rias. No one is going to die anymore tonight, Issei said as his head was down with his hair covering his eyes from everyone. Issei, please, Rias told him softly as she moved towards him and tried to put her hand on his shoulder. Don't touch me, yelled Issei as he was starting to shake in rage as his aura started to grow more powerful. Devils were in complete shock. They were in shock that their second-year friend and comrade had snapped. Even more at the girl that he was idolizing. Issei, please move aside so we can and we can talk later, okay? Rias told Issei in the smoothest and tenderest voice that she could muster. Shut up, roared Issei, lifting his head, showing the devils his now has green narrow eyes like a snake that were full of the fury and rage, with his aura increasing in volume that made all of them step back. Now before anything else happens, I'm going to get some answers, is that understood? He told them in the voice that was full of power and authority. But seeing that no one spoke or confirmed anything made him even angrier and even closer to lashing out at them. I said, is that UNDERSTOOOOOOOOD? He roared as he unleashes even more aura and the church began to shake with his voice and aura. Seeing this, all of them nodded in fear of what may happen if he was refused. To refuse an angry, pissed off dragon is like begging for death in a most gruesome way. Good, now then, what was the real reason you revived me, Rias? Asked Issei in cold and dangerous tone that promised pain and death if he wasn't given the real reason. I was banking on you, that you have a powerful sacred gear, answered the Red Hat. And you would have left me for dead if I hadn't had it? He asked. Rias SS, yelled Issei, seeing her trying to think of another way to answer him. And no. Issei's eyes hardened and narrowed, even more still green color radiate from his eyes, making them even more dangerous. With that done, Issei turned to Rainier, who was now even more scared for her life. She thought that she was stronger than Pawn, but that was in an instant shot down when she took a look in his eyes at her to try anything and promising her instant death. Rias, Issei told to the stunned red-haired heiress as she was still frozen in shock and fear from the power he emitted. Why yes, Issei? Asked the heiress. You do have some evil pieces with you, right? He didn't even bother to turn around. Rias stiffened at his question. Yeah, I have, but you are going to reincarnate this little crow over here, is that clear? Issei ordered Rias. Said both Rias and Rainier at what Issei said. Rias. Issei threatened. Why yes, Rias quickly said in fear. Hey, don't I have a say in this? Rainier said in anger. That was enough to make Issei took her arm and yank her toward him, her face a few centimeters from his. You can choose. Serve or die, your choice, Rainier. Because right now I'm so little away from snapping you like a twig. You did kill 2 innocent people. Asia and I don't want someone like Asia to be revived and serve someone who lies and deceives others to become her servants. Told her Issei in cold voice as he pointed to Rias at the end of his sentence. Rias wanted to argue because her pride was hurt, but green radiant eyes prevented her from doing it. Rias, Rainier here now possesses Asia's sacred gear Twilight Healing and she already has good control of it. Plus she will benefit both sides. Hey, I didn't agree to this, yelled the fallen angel, trying to get away from the angry Issei. You had your chance to choose. Right now nothing is stopping me from destroying you and ripping you to shreds for what you did to Asia. Choose now, death or servitude. This is your last chance. Told Issei, his green eyes bore holes in purple ones of Rainier. Rainier was left with one real choice and that was servitude, so she just nodded to Issei and stopped trying to pull herself off him and surrendered. Seeing this, Issei just nodded and turned to Rias. Do it. It was all done quickly. It didn't take any more than a few minutes for the procedure to be done and Rainier to become half fallen half devil. Good, now all of you get out. I will see you when I feel like it. Ordered Issei as he took a few steps towards the fallen form of the nun. Everyone else quickly left, not wanting to get an angry dragon even angrier and feeling his wrath firsthand. Asia, I swear to you now I won't be late ever again. I will change my ways for the better, that I promise you, and I hope that I can see you in heaven if I ever get there. Issei swore to the body of Asia as if she was still there. Goodbye my true friend and sorry for not being there for you. said Issei as he now had tears in his eyes. After a few more seconds he stands up and left. He missed the glowing light that surrounded Asia's body. And done. Ch 1 of 36 next, 580 Chapter 2, Issei's Return. Hello again, this Chapter 2 of The Road of Domination. But before we continue with the story, I would like to answer to some of the comments that were made in the first chapter. 1. For those that said that the beginning of the story wasn't original, I partly agree with you lot, but in my opinion, if you want to make Issei change from his completely perverted state and for him to go up the ranks quickly and make him do something other than being a lecher that is only about tits, then you have 4 or 5 places that you can start with that. First is if the story begins before the events that took place in Lane. Second is at who he revives him, like in Jack of Heart. It's extremely good story, you should all read it. Third is the church before Rainier is killed. Fourth before rating game and rematch with Riser, and finally in my opinion is Peace Summit.
2. I would like to point out that, yes, it may, in the beginning, look similar to the other stories out there, but after the first 2 to 3 chapters it will all change, since there would be other things that will show up. So don't think that it will be similar to others.
3. Is about my grammar. Yeah, I know it isn't that good since English isn't my language, and I will try to fix that issue as soon as possible. Well, that's all I wanted to say about comments. Thank you for the reviews, all are welcome, good and bad, it all helps. Special thanks to Dazazel for beta reading it and helping. I don't own High School DxD, that right goes to its creator. Normal speech. Diedrich speaking Chapter 2, Issei's Return. When he left the run-down church, Issei began to think of how can he become stronger. His first big obstacle came directly from the fact that he was a pervert, and an extremely big one at that. That gave others chances to use him and manipulate him in every which way they wanted by just showing him tits and he will do anything. So his first order of business came at trying to somehow someway manage to toe down on his lecherous tendency, and he acknowledged that he will need help in doing that. On his way home, Issei came across the same place where this whole madness started, at the newly built park, a place where he brought first girlfriend after a date, where he suppressed his pervert side to a minimum and was killed in cold blood and then revived into literally a slave. To a beautiful red hair girl that till tonight he idolized so much, to the point that he thought she was perfect, only to find out that she was literally worse than him in a way. So I came again here. It's strange how fate has a funny way to laugh at you when you're at your lowest, mused Issei as he took a look around him, feeling the cold evening wind. Oh well, better get home before my parents get there, said Issei to himself as he departed for home. After a few minutes, Issei arrived home, and seeing that his parents were asleep, he simply went to take a shower and eat something before going to bed. In his dreams, Issei found himself in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by an inferno, and from that inferno 2 emerald eyes were watching him with interest. Issei Hyodo, we meet again, spoke a deep ancient voice filled with power and might. Who are you? What are you doing here in my dream? Stuttered terrified Issei. You have already forgotten about me? I was the one that gave you the power to defeat that little crow you were fighting after all, told the dragon as he stepped out of Inferno to be directly in front of Issei. Rising to its full height, which was more than 50 meters. A dragon had red scales that looked like it could take a nuclear explosion and still remain without a scratch on them, and emerald eyes that sent a shiver down Issei's spine as he looked at them.
Why, you are Diedrich, the Red Dragon Emperor, the Heavenly Dragon? Asked Issei, still afraid of the massive red dragon whose power was said to rival gods and Mao's.
Indeed I am, and I am your partner from now on. You do not need to be worried, I will not harm you. Diedrich reassured the boy. The dragon looked down on Issei, seeing his expression as Issei was beginning to shake in fear at the thought of a massive dragon he was talking to. It's nice to meet you, Diedrich. I'm Issei Hyodo, but you know that already, I presume, told Issei, now feeling a little relaxed as he felt that the dragon in front of him would not hurt or eat him. Yes, I know who you are, and until recently I couldn't make a connection to speak with you because you were too weak for that, but your emotions and desire for power had made that connection possible. But now the question is, what do you intend to do with my power that is at your disposal? Spoke Diedrich in his powerful voice as he still looked down at his partner. I want to get stronger so that I can prevent what happened to Asia to happen to other people I love and care for. I will do anything that is necessary to get stronger. I will even suppress as much as possible my lecherous behavior if it is necessary. Issei honestly told the Red Dragon Emperor. Diedrich was very amused at what his host said. Sure, he was weakling, but he had great potential, and if he was willing to go through the pains and horrors of what he was going to teach him, Then maybe, some others that he knew if they were willing will teach him and train him. But he first needs to confirm it with his partner and see if what he was going to do with it when he gets what he wanted. That is very interesting, partner. I can see a strong will and desire from you. But if you truly plan on getting stronger, that you must do it quickly, because now that your sacred gear is activated you will attract both strong enemies and allies to you. Many of them, stronger than you. Are you ready for that, Issei Hyodo? Because if you try to run away they will go for those you love and care to get to you. Issei gulped at that. That was something that he wanted to avoid at all cost. To fight the foes that are much stronger and have much more experience in combat than him was dangerous, and even worse is that the said foes are going to go after the people that he wanted to protect if they can't get to him. Yeah, I am ready as I ever be, said Issei to Diedrich as he looks up at him with a strong desire in his eyes. Very well, Diedrich, the Red Dragon Emperor will aid you in your quest, but for now this is all the time we can talk here. But rest assured we can now talk even when you are not dreaming. But you'll need to become stronger enough for that, told Diedrich as Inferno suddenly disappeared just as it appeared, waking Issei from his slumber just before his alarm came. Wow, that was a strange dream I had, mumbled Issei as he looked around his room. That was not dream, partner, it was real, said a deep and powerful voice. What? So I wasn't just dreaming, Issei muttered. Correct, partner, what we talked about was all real and it will happen if you don't become stronger. Oh, okay then, what do you suggest, Diedrich? What should I do to get more powerful? Asked Issei, feeling a little dread creeping up his back. You should start with your physical strength, since from what I can see your magic is down to the bottom to almost non-existing. That will help you maintain more than a few boosts in a fight and will also increase your stamina, advised Diedrich as he analyzed Issei's body and magical reserves. That is a good idea. I'm more of a close combat fighter than a magic user, never liked magic anyway. With that the conversation's done, Diedrich returned to his slumber, telling Issei to if he needs his help to just summon the booster gear and he will wake up. After getting up and putting on his school clothes, he started packing his training clothes into his bag, as he planned for the next 3 to 4 weeks train himself to become stronger. With his mindset, he went down to the kitchen to eating breakfast with his parent before going out to train. Of course, he didn't tell his parents that, because he was sure that all hell will break loose if his parents found out what he became, and that just by knowing him that they were in danger. With his preparations completed, Issei set out to go train, and if the dragon was in a good mood, maybe he could learn some other things from the heavenly dragon that would be helpful in the future. After about half an hour, Issei made it to his destination. An open field outside Kuo, far enough for him to train and not be bothered by anyone. He stood in the opening with his bag on his shoulder looking at the field in front of him, and with satisfied nodded he began with his training. For the first hour or so Issei just did simple exercises, running, jumping jacks, push-ups, sits-up. After doing the basics and feeling a little tired, Diedrich instructed Issei that he should try doing the same exercises as before but with one boost. Partner, you should try using one boost and it will give you enough power to do those exercises easily. But it will leave you exhausted after the effect wears out. It will also be good to your expending stamina and for your body to get used to added strength. So the side effect of the booster gear won't affect you later on, explained Diedrich as Issei took to the heart what the legendary dragon said. Of course, Diedrich warned him that the more he uses the booster gear and the more he boosts, the drain on his stamina will be greater, so it would be smart to start small and after few days to increase the number of boosts. So for the rest of the day, Issei did the exercises with adding some new ones to make it even more difficult for him as much as possible to grow more. This pattern was repeated during whole month, and during breaks in between exercises, Diedrich educated Issei on what he knew and what was important for him at the time to know, about the supernatural world, about 3 factions, dragons, yokai, vampires, nekomata, etc. During his education, he found out that when the wielder of the sacred gear dies, a small part of his soul was transferred there and kept. Diedrich also mentioned his eternal battle against his rival the White One, or also known as Vanishing Dragon, the English Dragon Emperor forbidden move balance breaker, that Issei was still far away to unlock it. During his training Diedrich started to teach Issei magic, and as expected Issei found that it was even harder and difficult for him that physical part of the training, since Diedrich's most powerful move was fire breath that was so powerful that it would burn even gods and wouldn't die down until only ashes are left. That was what the mighty dragon taught Issei. And so his monthly training slowly finished. Issei knew he improved in stamina and strength, but he also knew that it was far cry from being at some decent power level that he can begin to try and do things that will lead him to his peace and safety of his loved ones. While his physical training showed some improvements, his magical training was still an area that he was extremely lacking. With all the training and education on his new life and what he can expect in future courtesy of Red Dragon of Domination, Issei was finally confident to return to his normal way of life. It happened to be Monday that he returned to school and his friends. As he walks through the school gate, he was met with a sight that made him want to laugh. All students' eyes landed on him the moment he stepped through the gate. Some people were wondering who was the new guy. Some girl were also thinking that he looked cute and handsome. It looked that they all forgotten him during his month of training, although to their defense he did look a little different from before. Before he looked a little skinnier and had an average built body, but after his whole month worth of training he gained little more muscle and more athletic, let his hair grow slightly to his shoulder, and his face became a little sharper than before. While walking to his classroom he could hear, thanks to his devil senses, what other people were talking about, and that made him almost burst up laughing. "Wow, look at the new kid. He's cute, isn't he?" spoke some girl to her friends while looking at him with stars in her eyes. "I wonder if he's single," told another, as he walks past them trying his best not to start laughing. As he entered his classroom he was met with silence as everyone was looking at him with confusion as to why was a new student at the entrance of their classroom. "Sorry for being late, teacher, I overslept," spoke Issei as he bowed to the teacher that still looked at him with a confused expression. "I didn't receive anything about a new student coming to this class. Who are you?" said the teacher, still not recognizing Issei. "It's me, teacher, Hyodo Issei," told Issei to the now shocked whole classroom. "What? That guy is the pervert beast Hyodo," yelled in shock females in class. They still couldn't believe that they didn't recognize him the moment he entered through the gate, and when some of them remembered that they called him cute and asked if he was solo, it made them go green in the face. "Issei, man, we are glad that you are finally back. The school wasn't the same without you, bro," yelled two male students. One had athletic built body and was both bold and bald. His name was Matsuda. He was one of the biggest perverts in school, a self-proclaimed lolicon, and his nickname was Sexual Harassment Paparazzi. While the other was skinny, had black hair, and was wearing glasses. His name was Motohama. He had an ability that can get accurate females' measurements at sight. His nickname was Three-Sized Scouter. They with Issei were known as Perverted Trio, for their tendency to peek at girls while changing. Their special target was the Kendo Club that had some of the most beautiful girls in it. The said Kendo Club was also their main enemy, since every time they peek at them it was almost for sure that they would end up getting the beat down. With the classroom in an uproar, the teacher began to calm down the students. After regaining some control over the situation, he asks the million-dollar question. "Where have you been, Hyodo? It was over a month since you disappeared," stated the teacher. "I had some unexpected family problems that made it impossible for me to come to school," answered the brunette. "I hope that the problem is solved now and that you will have your full attention on the lectures that are coming up. Also, come to teacher hall during lunch break to get all your missed assignments." "Yes, the problem was solved and thank you, teacher. Can I go to my seat now?" "You may." With a bow, Issei made his way to his seat. All eyes were on him, as he started to pull out his school supplies. One pair of purple eyes were narrowed and specifically glued to him as they watched him. The class after Issei came, returned relatively to normal as it could be. Some students were still surprised, some upset that the pervert beast returned, and some shell-shocked that they thought that he was a new student. After the class was over, all of his classmates surrounded him and started bombarding him with questions about what happened to him and where he was. "Where have you been, Issei? We were worried sick about you. You didn't tell anyone what happened to you, and even Orc didn't know where you were," yelled Motohama and Matsuda at the same time. "Like I told the teacher, I had some family emergency that left me in no condition to come to school," said Issei. "Okay, then with that done, what do you say about getting to see some nice pieces of the body? We found some new places that will give us all that could dream," Motohama told Issei while pushing his glasses up. That made all female in the room to send death glares at them. They were shocked at Issei's answer, as they never in a million years thought they will hear it. "Nah, I'm not in the mood today, guys. Maybe next time," said Issei as he put his head on the table. While that was a technical lie, it was also a good opportunity to toe down his less popular tendency. What? Issei, what are you saying? Are you feeling well?" stuttered Matsuda. "Yeah, I'm alright. I'm just not in the mood today to go with you guys." That made some girls that were listening the conversation to pull the two perverts away from Issei so that they could confront him. Well, that was the unexpected answer coming from the breast beast. What, we aren't good enough for you now, ne Hyodo? Mocked a pink-haired girl as she stood in front of Issei. I thought that with me gone for a whole month and not peeking on you, and not doing it today would at least make you happy a little bit more, Katase. Muttered Issei, his voice tired of the constant sarcastic remarks of the pink-headed girl.
We are very happy about that, Issei, but it's really strange hearing it from you of all people, you know that, right? Spoke brunette girl that was a few centimeters taller than Katase.
Well, as much as it is strange hearing it from me, Murayama, even I have those days, that isn't to say that both of you are not good enough. Heck, both of you are very beautiful, if I may say so myself. Told Issei as he moved his head so it was resting on his cheek and looking directly at Murayama. Both girls blushed, their cheeks turning a little red at the comment he made about them. That left both Murayama and Katase dumbfounded. They were very both happy at what Issei said. Happy that he wasn't going to peep on them at least for today, and maybe there was a slim chance that the pervert trio will be cut down to pervert duo. That would be a miracle that both Murayama and Katase would gladly pray for. Issei suddenly got a headache. With all that said and done, the rest of the day went as one can expect. Issei was under a constant barrage of questions about his disappearance and return. He didn't even acknowledge his king and rest of Orc as he made sure to be as distant as possible. Well, look at who came back after a whole month. Spoke a familiar voice filled with sarcasm from behind him. Oh, Rainier didn't know that you are in my class, said surprised Issei as he turns around to the familiar voice, only to look at Rainier and was not surprised to see her in her Yuma form that she used to get him on that fateful day. My name in school is Yuma, remember that? Hissed Rainier as she stepped closer to him. Yeah, so what do you want, Yuma? Asked Issei in his uninteresting voice. Where have you been, you jerk? And Rias wants to see you after school. Nearly yelled furious Rainier at the boy who ruined her life. Where I was isn't important, and you can tell Rias that I don't care what she wants. I will come to the clubroom when I feel like it. Issei told her in a serious voice while rising a little bit of his aura for her to get a point that Issei was serious. Rainier cringed a bit when she felt his aura come near her. She still remembered well that night at church when he was close to snapping and when he almost killed her. Fine, be it your way, said the half-breed as she made her way towards Orc to tell her king what the pawn said. Well, that went better than I expected, said to himself Issei as he went home. As he went going home, Issei didn't realize that he was followed by someone who was going to change his life upside down even more. And done. Also, I have already selected his peerage, but he won't receive his evil pieces until later, but he will meet some of his future members soon. Previous Ch2 Chapter 3. Getting help from unexpected source. Author's note. Hey, we start with this chapter. I would like to point out some things. As some of you said, I still have some problems with grammar, but with Dazazel's help I hope that it will be a lot fewer mistakes in that regard. As for the story, here is where it gets a little of the canon. I did mention in the last chapter that someone was following Eyes, and in this chapter, you will see who it is based on her description that I put in. My plan for this story is for Eyes to slowly get to meet and in some cases fight some members of his future peerage, but I will not reveal who they are or what pieces they will get. You will have to see it for yourself later in the for Eyes not being pervert anymore. That's not the case. He will still be the lovable pervert we know, but he will try to reduce it as much as possible as he has realized that it will give him more harm than good. As for Orc, he will still interact with them but on a smaller scale, as I don't like Rias that much and still find her personality too annoying and too much self-centered. Well, with that said and done, let's get to the chapter. And as always, feedback is welcome. And if you have questions about the story, feel free to PM me and I will answer the best way I can to your questions. I don't own High School DxD. That right goes to its creator. Talking, thinking. Diedrich talking, Diedrich thinking. Chapter 3. Getting help from the unexpected source. Returning home, Issei found that focusing on other things besides porn made wonders when he saw how much time for something else he had. Of course, that didn't mean that he has given up on it. He would watch it from time to time. After all, he was still a 17-year-old teenager craving for a female body. But given how his life was turned upside down, he tried to focus as much as he could on other things. One of those things was family. Ever since his childhood friend left, Issei was left empty. He was always alone. That was until he comes across an old man who told him stories about the power of tits. Issei came every day to listen to him, and that's how his perverted side come about. That side was beginning to show itself in middle school, where he actually meet his two friends that with him made up, pervert trio. Even during his first year in middle school, every girl he meets would almost immediately turn around and walk away, or slap him seeing that he was undressing her with his eyes. He wanted to have a harem, but when the girls wouldn't even give him the time of a day to even say, hello, let alone be with him, he did the next best thing, and that was peeping on them. Of course, that ends up usually at him and his pervert friends getting the shit beaten out of them, but that didn't stop him or his friends from doing the same thing over and over again. That was how his days would end up from the begging of the first year at middle school all the way to a few days ago. Finally, after the whole supernatural thing was revealed to him and what he could expect from that side, he understood the importance of living and that there are some other things besides porn. So after dinner, Issei went to his room to do his homework and talk to Heavenly Dragon that he was a partner now to see if there are some other ways to gather strength and power so that he could at least protect his family. So Diedrich, is there other ways to increase in strength than just plain exercise? Wondered Issei as he was keen on doing some other things that basic training. Yes partner, but you have to remember that since you extremely lack in magic you have to make it up in strength, answered the great dragon. That sounds like I don't have many options then. No, you don't partner, but I think in a few months that you can awaken some of the others users of booster gear, if they are willing, will help you in your endeavors, ensured Diedrich as he felt Issei's sadness at not doing much to improve in other areas. Really Diedrich, is what you say really the truth? That I can awake my predecessors if I get stronger? Asked Issei, now filled with hope that maybe some of past users will help him in his quest for power to protect. I don't have a slight benefit of a doubt that they will help you. Thank you Diedrich, you are a real friend. Answer honestly Issei. You are welcome partner, but I suggest that you finish your work and go to bed. I will train you from now on personally in your dreams. This should help you in some techniques that I have, that are because you are my host should come easily to you. And it will also increase your chances to achieve balance breaker. Instructed Diedrich, since he had a strange feeling that things are sure to hit the fan very soon and his host needed every bit of advice, training, and experience he could get. With that said and done, Diedrich cut the feed and Issei was left to his own devices. He first thought was how to at least subdue his tendencies. 2-3 people came to his mind, but he was sure that they would likely beat the tar out of him even before he asks their help. But that was something that he needed to do before he could write them down. I think I should just ask Murayama and Kate straight and see if they are even willing to help, plus it could be good if they could also train me in swordplay, it wouldn't hurt to know how to use a weapon. Issei pondered on that for the moment before deciding that he would ask and hope for the best before going to bed and going to sleep, where his dragon friend was waiting for him to begin the most terrified and painful training he will experience. Fucking Diedrich, fucking dragon breath, fucking sadistic lizard bastard. That was what Issei repeated constantly over and over in his head as he went to school. At the beginning of his training, as Diedrich called it, Issei quickly realized that the heavenly dragon was insane and that what he called training was much closer to pure torture than the former. Issei was forced to dodge Diedrich's flames, sent flying, bruised, burned, and for the lack of the better term left on just a centimeter away from death's door. Diedrich's constant reminder that this was just the beginning, and for that reason Issei could feel the shivers go down his spine, wishing that he didn't want to know what was in Diedrich's opinion, heavy training. As he made his way to school, Issei saw 2 people he was going to ask for help, and as luck would have it the said people were also arriving at school. Thinking that after training with his sadistic dragon training instructor nothing could get any worse, he made his decision to approach them. Murayama, Kate, do you have a moment? I would like to ask you something, called Issei as the duo stopped at the sound of his voice and turned to face him. What do you want, Hyodo? Asked angrily Kate. I was wondering if, by any chance, you guys are willing to help me with something. Answer Issei, feeling very afraid of Kate as she narrowed her eyes at him. And what would that be, pervert? Well, how could I say this, but Issei started feeling terrified of her and a bit embarrassed that he would ask her for help. Spill it. What do you want? Do you want to see us naked, is that what you want? Spouted Kate, feeling a lot angrier that one person that was always peeping on them, except yesterday, was here in front of her asking for something, and she has no doubt something perverted at that. Kate, cool down a little bit, you are scaring him senseless, said Murayama, seeing that Issei was getting paler at the sight of angry Kate in front of him. Fine Mura, but if it's something perverted he is getting shinai so deep in his ass that the doctors would need to struggle to get it out. Answered Kate as she was trying to calm down a little bit. Now Issei, what did you need to ask us? Asked Murayama at seeing Kataise calm down. Well, I wanted to ask you guys if you would be willing to help me with toning down my perverted side. Stuttered Issei, as he was still embarrassed for asking them of all people for help. That answer left shocked Murayama and Kataise. They first look at each other, then at the sky to see if it wasn't falling down because they were sure that it was, and lastly to Issei to see if he was alright. Why, you want our help in stopping your perverted tendencies, is that right? Stuttered stunned pink-haired girl as she was still shell-shocked at the question. Why yeah, that's what I'm asking. Would you two be willing to help me with this? I will do anything and everything you say. Embarrassed Issei answered honestly. Hyodo, would you wait for the end of the school to hear our decision? Asked an equally shocked brunette. Yeah, I can wait. Meet me at the gate after school, sounds good, said Issei, feeling a little more hope in his decision on asking those two. Sure, that would work. Well, see you in the classroom, Hyodo, answered Murayama as she was the first to get out of the shock that Issei gave them. Kataise was so in shock that after getting the answer from Murayama was forced to drag her to Kendo Club. Well, that went pretty good if I may say so myself, thought Issei, glad that the girls were even considering to help, and he was sure that if they decided to help that he would have 2 more sergeant instructors that will make him feel like hell was heaven if he screws up. Yes, partner, that was a good decision on your part of asking for help in your less honorable trait, spoke Diedrich in Issei's mind as he listened to the conversation and found it amusing to see his host behaving like this. Yeah, I know, right? Well, better get to the classroom before class starts, responded Issei in his mind while making his way to the classroom. When he was about to enter the classroom, unwanted voices have gotten his attention. Eyes. A very familiar voice to him shouted. Where have you been? I was worried sick about you, questioned the owner of the other voice. As Issei turned around, he was met with his king and bishop, who were from the look of things going to his classroom to get him. Seeing them, Issei gave a tired sigh, knowing what the duo wanted. What do you two want? Questioned the pawn as he looked into the eyes of his king with the bored expression. Where have you been for the last 4 weeks? Repeated Rias as she wanted to know what was the Securite doing in that period of time. Training, he simply answered. And why didn't you tell me or come to the club? Continued Eris. Because I didn't feel like coming to a liar of liars and killers. Again Issei simply answered as he entered his classroom, leaving a hurt Rias and an annoyed Rainier. Rainier, when school finishes, follow him and see what he is up to and report it to me immediately, ordered Rias to her bishop. And why do you think I will do those, princess? Said Rainier in an annoyed tone. You want for Akano to punish you again for disobedience? Smirked Rias as she saw Fallen, Devil Hybrid's face. Rainier was white as a sheet as she remembered how Akano tortured her for 2 hours for not following Rias' orders, and that was something that she didn't want to happen. She just nodded and left in a hurry. As school continued like normal, Issei found that his 2 perverted friends were even more annoying, and he realized that what they are doing was to get him in trouble so they can escape the brutal treatment of the Kendo Club. He tried to keep the distance from them since he was focusing on trying to suppress his perverted nature so that he can at least not get used. As he class ended, Issei was confronted with his 2 pervert buddies. Issei, let's go, shouted Enjoy Matsuda. Yeah, Issei, let's go. We found a beautiful spot where we can peep on the girls and explore female body to its fullest, added Motohama while Matsuda nods his head in agreement with glasses-wearing pervert, ignoring the death glares sent from girls that heard them. Seeing the conversation going on, the girls that didn't leave the classroom yet and waited to hear Issei's answer, since coming from his month-long absence he changed in a good way, for the girls didn't even bother to say hi to him, though now they are even willing to have a sentence or two with him, and his new look did help a fair bit in the girls' opinion. 3 girls, in particular, were expecting him to accept their offer, but his answer still proved them wrong. As I said before, no, I will not go with you guys to peep on the girls, since for once I can talk to some girls without a problem and it's nice for a change, stated Issei as he looked into the eyes of his slowly but surely ex-friends. Inside he wanted to go with them badly, but he knew that he needed to grow up from his perverted state and mature. Still, that didn't mean that he couldn't get a side glance under the skirt or shirt of a beautiful girl. But he felt good that some girls, after seeing that he wasn't with the duo when they were caught and brutally beaten to shit a few times, started to open just a little bit to him and be more friendly. What are you talking about, Issei? Asked Motohama in disbelief as he pushed his glasses up. Yeah, Issei, what happened to you? Also questioned Matsuda, also not believing his friend has just refused this beautiful offer to see girls in their birthday suit. "It's just as I said, I'm not going with you guys," he said, now in a serious and commanding tone that made them shiver in fear, and some girls and a certain fallen angel shiver in excitement of his commanding tone as he relists a little bit of his dragon aura to complete the effect of intimidation. "Fine, you win Issei this time, but we will bring you back to your senses eventually," Motohama stated angrily, as he and Matsuda left to go and peep at the girls. With this done, Issei took his belongings and left the classroom, leaving the kendo duo alone to discuss what just happened. "Well, that was definitely awkward," said Kate, still not believing that Issei was beginning to change. "Yeah, it is awkward, but looks at it on a light side, it's a good opportunity to reduce pervert trio by 1. And if Issei doesn't behave, you can still beat the crap out of him," stated Murayama. "Yeah, I guess you're right, Mura. But still, I think it's just some plan of his to get a better look at us under clothes," answered back Kate, as she was unsure about this whole ordeal. "Well, if we don't try, we wouldn't know if he is fooling around or really trying to reduce it. Who knows, maybe you will fall in love with him, Kate," said Murayama with a smirk at seeing her pink hair friend have a look of disbelief in her eyes, but her cheeks turn a little pink at that statement. Murayama knew that Kate had a small crush on Issei, and if he was normal and not breast beast, she would have asked him out on a date, but since he was what he was, she outright refused to do anything. "Don't make it sound like you are any better, Mura. I know that you had a crush on him since day one," retailed Kate. "Yup, and I still do have one. That's why I will help him, and with some luck maybe get along with him, but first things first, we need to get him to control his perverted urges. I like him way more when he isn't in his pervert mode," Murayama said, as like talking about the weather and not about her secret crush. "Well, if you are so sure about this, then I will also give it a try, but one wrong move and he will get a shinai in his ass so deep that even the doctors would have to cut him up to get it out." Kate reluctantly agreed to Murayama's train of thoughts, but also promised her that if Issei gave her a perverted look, then all hell will break loose on him. "Good, now all that is left to do is inform him and to see when and where do we start his training," said Murayama with a smile on her face. "Soon, Issei, soon I can be with you. I can wait for that day," thought Murayama as she and Kate left the classroom to go and eat lunch. Elsewhere, Issei was confronted with Kiba as he was sent to get Issei to go to the orc clubroom. "What do you want, Kiba?" asked Issei as he was about to start eating his lunch. "President sent me to retrieve you so that she can talk to you, Issei," answered Kiba as he looked into Issei's eyes and was ready to summon his sword if need be. Issei just shook his head at seeing that he wasn't going to win this argument. Even if he refuses Kiba, Rias was going to send Kaneko or Akeno to get him next, and he knew that if Akeno was refused, then let's just say it would be one-sided fight where he was going to get electrocuted until he was a centimeter from death's door, knowing her sadistic side. And that was something that he would like to avoid at all cost until he gets stronger, where he can at least retaliate back. "Fine, Kiba, I will go with you, but this better be good or I will break both your legs and have Rainier heal them and then break them again, you got that?" Issei warned as he put his lunch back in his backpack and moved towards the old school building. "It will be Issei," Kiba quickly answered, not wanting to test Issei's claim on himself. "Well, let's go then," Issei simply said as Kiba quickly caught up to him. As they entered the building, he felt that everyone from Rias Peerage was there. But from looks of things they seemed in disarray for some reason. "President, we are here," stated Kiba as he entered with Issei right behind him. Clubroom still looked like as Issei remembered. It still had a Victorian style to it, with a couple of leather sofas and a small wooden table in the middle, and had a back door that leads into a hallway that had doors that were for the kitchen, spare room, and bathroom. All in all, Clubroom looked more like an apartment than an old school building. "Ah, Yuto, Eyes, it's good that you came here. I have news for you both that we just take a sit. Akeno, would you please bring us some tea?" told Rias as she sat at her table and waited for Akeno to bring tea to the rest of them. "Here you go, President," said Akeno as she brought tea to Rias and the rest of the club. "Okay, Rias, what do you want and what is so important?" questioned Issei as he still wasn't over what happened in the church and he wanted to spend as little time as possible with them. "I thought I told you to call me President, Eyes," stated Rias as she folded her arms under her breast as she looked Eyes with narrowed eyes. "And I thought I told you that I don't want to see you still, but knowing that you are annoying as hell, I came here, so tell me what's so important," he responded back as he released some of his aura for intimidation, a nifty trick that he learned from Diedrich, and from the look on everyone's face it worked. Although Akeno had a blush on her face as she licked her lips in a seductive way, her M-side in full force, showing that she very much liked the idea of her cute junior dominating her in bed. Well, what I wanted to say is that since you have time to adapt to life as a devil, and after your month worth of leave that you will have to return to your devil duties, and that soon we will have to go to the familiar forest to get you a familiar, since all of us here have it. But that is for the next month, and I would like to know how good was your training went," answered Rias after collecting enough of herself. Eyes just sighed as he should saw this coming, but he still needed to at least follow orders from her even though he didn't want. "Sure. I will continue my devil jobs, and as for how training went, it went good, but there are still a lot of things that I need to improve if I ever want to advance through the ranks to become high class," replied Issei while closing his eyes and putting his hand on his chin in a thinking manner. "That's good to hear, Eyes. If you become strong enough and do your job well, you can increase in rank for sure," said Akeno as she was standing behind Rias. "Yeah, I know. Well, if that's all there is to know, I will take my leave. There is still school and I'm hungry, so goodbye for now," said Issei as he stood up and left. When Issei left and was out of hearing, Rainier, that was until now silent, said something that made them all interested in their pawn even more. "Well, it looks like Issei is looking for a way to decrease his perverted nature," said Rainier. "And how do you know that, Rainier?" questioned Rias. "Well, you did say to follow him, and since I'm with him in class does have some benefits. Anyway, I heard those two kendo captains said that he asks for their help in it, and from the looks of things, both of them will help him, plus both of them have a crush on him," answered Rainier as she stood up and excused herself and left to also go get lunch and see what the man that put her in this position would do next. "It seems that things will become even more interesting from now on, don't you think, Rias?" said Akeno as she was sipping more tea that came from Kaneko, who was too much focused on her snacks to even bother about other things. Yes, it would seem that way, Akeno," Rias said in thought. On the other end of the town, figure that followed Issei entered a house that looked fairly modest. It was a 2-story house that had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, living room that had a futuristic look to it. As the figure entered the living room, it removed its hood to reveal a beautiful girl that had pale skin, auburn hair, and red eyes, butterfly headphone accessory on her head with a lollipop in her mouth. She looked like she was the same age as Issei. "Well, Issei Hyodo, it looks like we will have a meeting in a very near future. I'm really looking forward to it," the auburn teen said with a soft smile on her face. And done. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this chapter. I had little difficulty in making you see I made it so that both Murayama and Katase have feelings for Issei. As for the said figure, she will meet Issei very soon. Till the next chapter, goodbye guys. First, previous ch3 of 36. Next, chapter 4, Unwanted Guest. Author note. Well, you guys guessed it right. The auburn figure was Chelsea, and in this chapter, she will interact with Issei and the kendo duo. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the story so far. And I will try to make it, moving forward, as even more enjoyable for you guys. In the next chapters, we will get some fight scenes since we are moving from the Rainier arc to the Riser arc. As for those that think it's strange and even a little forceful for the kendo duo to have a crush on our lovable pervert, all that will be answered in the following chapters. So stay patient and it will be answered. I would also like to thank Dazazel for helping me in fixing some issues with grammar and all of that stuff. As always, feedback is welcome. If you guys have questions about the story, feel free to PM me and I will answer as best as I can. So, let's get started. I don't own High School DxD. That right goes to its creator, Ichibumi Issei. Chapter 4. Unwanted Guest. After the lunch break, that was fairly annoying for Issei, because he had to deal with people that hurt and betrayed him in the worst possible ways. Issei is now eagerly, with a bit of fear mixed in, waiting for school to end to see if the kendo duo were willing to help him with his problem. As the school bell sounded the end of today's lessons, he quickly packed his belongings and went to the gates to see what their decision was. Not too long after he got there, the people he waited for showed up with a neutral expression on their faces that upset him a little bit. So guys, what did you decide? He stuttered as he was now a bit afraid of their refusal. We decided Eyes, but before we tell you our answer, we need to know some other things. Sounds good? Answered Murayama as she looked at him with her neutral expression. Yeah, that sounds good, so what do you need to know? He replied, feeling a bit of hope since it sounded like that they accepted his request, but he tried not to show it. Well, the things we want to know are a bit complicated to speak in public, so do you know any place where we can talk? This time Katase spoke. Sure, we can talk at my place. My parents aren't home, so it's secured to talk to about things that are private. And before you, Katace, go for the Shinai no, I didn't think of that things. He quickly answered, seeing that Katace was about to grab her sword to hit him. It better be like you said or I will put this sword in your ass, you got that? Katace said with venom in her voice. It's like I said, you can trust me on that. I may be a pervert but I'm not a liar or a sexual maniac that will rape you too. Issei replied back. Fine, lead the way, she said, accepting his words. This way, ladies. As they left, Rainier followed them with interest, since she too wanted to know what made Issei ask his archenemies for help and what the duo wanted to know. So she masked her presence and went after them. What she and the trio didn't know is that the auburn-haired girl that was following Issei for a few days now was also following them now, and she looked excited about the prospect of having some fun with all of them, so she hurried to get as fast as can to his house and set all hell loose on him. After about 15 minutes, the trio arrived at the Securité's house that looked like the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. It was a normal 2-story terraced house with a light blue exterior, a balcony on the second floor, and a brown roof. Well, here we are. Make yourself comfortable here. I will get some drinks and snacks, said Issei as he led the duo into his house, not noticing another presence in his house. Seeing that her camouflage and masked presence was working beautifully, the auburn teen decided to have some fun. That was why she came here for after all. Oh, honey, you're home, she said in a sweet and seductive tone as she stepped out of the kitchen. Hearing the voice, Securité immediately activated his sacred gear in front of the two girls as he stepped in front of them. Who are you and what are you doing in my house? Asked Issei as he started boosting his power. Oh, my. Have you already forgotten about me? Shame on you, my dear, and here I thought that you loved me, she stated in a fake hurt tone as she put her hand over her heart. While this was going on, Murayama and Katace were in shock. First, Issei said that he was alone at home, and now from the looks of things it looked like he lied. The second was a strange-looking gauntlet that appeared out of nowhere, and what was even more strange is that it started saying, "boost," after every so often. And the third was the auburn teen that looked like she knew Issei very well. After getting over their shock state, they looked at each other and with a nod decided that they were going to milk every last information out of Issei for this. But for now their attention returned to the girl that was standing in front of them. And both girls could agree that she was very beautiful, with her long auburn hair that went down to her middle back, butterfly headphones accessory on her head. She wore a black vest along with a white long shirt that was underneath it with a red ribbon, a red miniskirt, and had black leather boots. Cut the crap and tell me who you are and what are you doing here, stated Issei, feeling angrier at the unknown girl that was in his house. Boost. Oh, will you look at that? So the information about you was correct. You are the Red Dragon Emperor, she said nonchalantly, as if she was used to seeing it all the time. Yes, I'm the current Securité, now answer the damn question. He answered, his voice becoming dangerous as he felt a little bit annoyed that she still didn't answer him. My name is Chelsea, a pleasure to meet you, Securité. As for what I'm doing here, well, that's easy, I'm here to have some fun. And don't worry, I'm not here to fight, so can you please dismiss you sacred gear? Even though I may be stronger than you now, if you boost enough times you can easily beat me, and from counting how many times you boost already, I will have to say that we are almost even now. The girl now known as Chelsea stated. She knew that her experience can get her an advantage over him, but knowing that one lucky shot from the powered-up Securité would spell instant death to weak opponents and heavy injuries to some average, she didn't want to test her chances with him yet if she can prevent that. And how can I trust you that the moment I dismiss my sacred gear you won't attack me or my friends behind me? Questioned Issei. He was told by Diedrich that situations like this would happen when an opponent would try to make him lower his guard and when he was at his weakest attack him. I see that you thought about that possibility also, but rest assured that I'm not here to fight. I'm more of an assassination than a straightforward fighter. If I was ordered to kill you, you would have been dead long ago, as I had plenty of opportunities to do it, Chelsea stated calmly as she took out a lollipop out of her skirt pocket and put it in her mouth. So what are you doing here then, besides having intruded into my house? Issei asked as he saw that what she said was the truth. Why don't we all sit down and talk about, said Chelsea, as she made her way onto one of the sofas in the living room. Issei, you do know that you have a lot of explaining to do, right? Said Murayama, as she and Katace finally able to get a word out since they felt the dangerous situation in front of them vanish, and what the Chelsea girl said made them shiver in fear. That made Issei went paled as he forgotten that the duo behind him didn't know anything about the supernatural world, and he knew that once you entered it there was no going back. He sighs heavily as he decided that if they were going to help he would at least tell them what they wanted to know. Yeah, I know, but let us first sit and then we will talk about it, he answered back as he went to the kitchen to get some drinks and snacks. After a minute or so he came back with a tray of food and drinks. He put them down on a table and proposed to sit down on a love sofa so that he could see all three girls. Murayama and Katase took the large sofa as they sat near each other. Okay, before you two begin to question me, let's see what our new friend is doing in my house, sounds fair? He asked the kendo duo, and seeing them nod made him smile a little bit. Before he turned his attention to an intruder which he could honestly say was extremely hot, and if the situation was different he would be all over her in a blink of an eye. Since you insist, darling. She smirked when she saw a little jealousy in the brunette-haired girl's eyes, but she had to first diffuse the tension that was in the room before she could tease the life of the girl and the boy, which she found to be very cute and handsome. Like I said, my name is Chelsea and I was assigned to watch over you and see if you have a sacred gear. And if you have, to see what in terms of power level is. If you were at a lower level of power, I was told to bring you with me, to our faction with force if necessary. But seeing that you already have activated it and that you have, I would say, decent power, I think that that wouldn't work, so I choose another way, to come directly to you so that we can talk and see if you are willing to come with me, darling. We could have so much fun together, she said in a normal voice in the beginning and ended in a flirty and seductive tone while licking her lips, which made Issei go full red that put even his gear at shame. Murayama, seeing this, decided to make herself known to the other girl, as she didn't like an idea of Issei leaving when she was so close to having him. What are you talking about? What faction? And what is a sacred gear? She questioned as she wanted answers, and seeing Katase nod her head in agreement with her. Well, I can answer the first two questions somewhat, but I will let my darling answer the last one, was the reply she gotten from the auburn teen. Don't call him darling, sneered Murayama as she felt that she had little chances against the girl in front of her. She was very attractive, and from the look in Issei's eyes, Murayama knew that she was losing the battle over him. Oh, jealous about my interaction with my dear little Issei? She questioned with a smirk at seeing the brunette becoming red with each passing second from embarrassment and anger. That's not what I meant. Murayama stuttered as she felt her cheeks blush even more than they were a moment ago. You sure about that? Chelsea sends another jab at her. She loved this. Her mischief side was now in full force, and he would enjoy this sweet torture for as long as she can. Unfortunately for her, Issei decided to enter the conversation and release Murayama from even more embarrassment. He knew that she had a small interest in him, since every time he was caught Murayama would hold back a lot as to not hurt him too badly and would avoid sensitive parts. And if he was honest with himself, he did have a crush on her since day one at Kuo Academy. Okay, Chelsea, I think you had your fun. Now answer the questions, he stated seriously as he was also curious about this faction she spoke about. Chelsea cutely pouted at her fun being cut short, but decided that she would continue later on. What I'm talking about is that there are other factions in this world, not just humans, but you already know that, my dear. Chelsea said as she looked towards Issei and then to the duo on a sofa. As for you two, Murayama and Katase. Yes, there are other factions, like devils, angels, fallen angels, vampires, yokai, and so much more. And before you ask how I know your names, the answer is simple. I was also following you two also since you knew Issei and interacted with him on the daily basis, answered Chelsea while drinking some juice and eating some snacks that Issei brought for them. That left the girls on the edge. To hear that you were followed by an assassin no less was a hard pill to swallow for anyone. And the discovery that the mythical beings exist was even more of a shock to the girls. Wait, so what are you saying is that mythical beings like devils and angels really exist? For the first time since this conversation started, Katase spoke in disbelief. Yes, they exist, my darling, here is a proof of that, aren't you my sweet and cute little devil dragon? Replied Chelsea with a smirk, while making Issei blush and Murayama even angrier at the flirting that the auburn-haired girl was doing with her love interest. But what she first said died her anger down. That little revelation left the kendo girls looking at Issei like he had grown a second head. Issei, is she saying the truth? You aren't human? Murayama spoke in a saddened tone. Sorry, but no, I'm not a human anymore. Well, not 100%, but since I was born I wasn't completely human, he answered as he looks over from Chelsea to the duo at the opposite side. Then what are you? Asked Katase with a little edge in her tone that made Issei flinch a bit. Well, I'm from what I gathered, a 50% devil, 35% human and 15% dragon. But as you can see I look like a normal human being, he answered in a soft tone. Okay, then that leads us to the next question. What faction are you from? This time it was Issei who asked as he looked at Chelsea with a serious look. Chelsea for her part blushed a little at the gaze that made him look even cuter and more handsome in her opinion, and if what she knew about Issei was correct she wouldn't mind being with him even in a harem since she knew that that was his dream. To become a harem king. She also caught him a few times looking her over. He gave her body a complete scan which she found amusing and flattered that she was attractive to him. As much as I want to answer your question my dear, I can't, at least not until you decide to join us, and then I can answer any question you ask or you desire. She seductively answered with a wink. But that is it for today, I must be going home now, it's getting late and I need my beauty sleep to look good for you. And don't worry, we will see each other soon you three. Bye. With that Chelsea stood up, but before she left, she quickly gave Issei a kiss on the cheek that made him turn crimson red with embarrassment and the girls red with anger. All of that made Chelsea giggle at the amusing sight as she left 2 fuming girls and 1 stunned boy in its wake. Ahem. Now that that's over, Issei, before we give you our answer to your request we need to know some things, said Katase as she was the first to return to normal, while Murayama looked like she was ready to murder someone. Issei for his part was still in shock over the kiss, but one look from Murayama that could prone instant castration and chopping of the head was enough to bring him back. What did that Chelsea girl did to make her so pissed off was beyond him. Murayama was now in her own world, planning how to deal with this auburn teen that was stealing her Issei from her. Oh, you just wait bitch, I'm going to enjoy chopping your head and putting it on a pike when I'm done with you. No one is going to steal him from me, not now when I have a chance to bring him back to normal and be with him, thought menacingly Murayama as her eyes darkened at all the murderous ideas she could do run through her head. Issei and Katase gulped, paled and backed away as they saw her lips turn into a sadistic smile that in Issei's opinion would put even Akino's best to shame. Well Issei, I think it would be wise to answer some questions before Mura goes on to do whatever that smile on her faces represent. Don't you agree? Katase asks, hoping that she could break the dark thoughts in her best friend's mind. Not wanting to get a beat down from her friend when Katase hit Issei in his family jewels. Issei just nodded his head in acknowledgement, not daring to speak. Okay, you said that you are a devil now, who are also devils that you know? Katase asked. That question made Murayama break from her thoughts of murdering the auburn girl, to look at him and waiting to hear his answer. Well, as far as I know, all member of Orc are devils. And Rias Gremory is our king. Answers Issei quickly and honestly, not wanting to fill the duo's wrath. Wait, all the members are devils, even Yuma and Kiba? Murayama questioned. Yes, Kiba was devil long before me, and as for Yuma, or should I say Rainier, she was only turned devil when I intervened with her death. She was a fallen angel before, he said, as he was still haunted by what he experienced with Rainier and his discovery in the church. Rainier? Rias? And how did you become a devil eyes? Katase was next to ask, and to Issei, it looked like that they were synchronized with each other. Yes, Yuma Amano or Rainier was a fallen angel until a month ago. As to how I become a devil, well, let's just say that a spear of light, courtesy of Rainier and Rias intervening when she did, was all that took. He answered in a tone that gave both girls a signal that he wasn't ready to tell them and that he wanted to forget that day. So Rias saved you in the end, is that what are you saying, eyes? In a way. Look guys, I'm still not ready to tell you what happened, so can we just skip it and get to the next question? He said as he looked Katase in the eyes. Yeah, we can do that, so what is a sacred gear? That Chelsea chick sure knew about it. She continued, seeing that it was still a sore subject to him. Sacred gear are items made for the humans from God of the Bible. There are many sacred gears and they are connected directly to user's soul. Rainier has twilight healing, and before you ask, she stole it from a human. I was born with the gauntlet of Red Dragon Emperor which you saw. Kiba has one that makes swords and so on. Issei said as he thought about it, who of the ones he knows have some, but none came to his mind. Satisfied with his answers, for now, both girls nodded and answered his unspoken question. Well, we come to an agreement that will help you with your problem, but know this now, if you do some things that we think are wrong, you can expect a shinai up your ass. We will start your training tomorrow after school at the Kendo Club. Do we have a deal? Said Katase as she stood up and extended an arm to him. Seeing this, Issei felt joy and immediately agreed to their demands full-heartedly as he shook her hand. Yes, we have a deal. Now though, I think you two should go home, it's getting late. I will escort you back, now that you know of this world that I'm a part. Anything can happen, better safe than sorry. Issei stated as both he and the girls went out. As they were walking toward Katesa's home, they had a small talk about what they were going to do and how were they going to help him. To say that Issei would be going through a world of pain was an understatement. He thought that at the end of his training regiment with the duo he would be able to take Diedrag's strongest attack head-on and feel nothing. He knew that he was exaggerating, but still, from what he was told it didn't sound so much far from it. After about 10 minutes they left Katase at her front door and then went to Murayama's place. As Murayama talks about how he was going to train in kendo to improve his stamina, also to increase his reflex speed, he felt that this part of the training wasn't so bad. But then again, he was going to be proven to be wrong so many times that he still didn't believe it was all that good. As they stopped in front of her house, Murayama turned around to look at him before speaking. "Well, this is my stop. Thank you for escorting us home, Eyes. You are really a gentleman when you are not being a pervert. I like this side of you better than when you're a lecher. Thank you again and I will see you tomorrow." "Yeah, see you tomorrow and have a good night," said Eyes, but before he could turn around and walk away he was suddenly grabbed by Murayama as she kissed him on the lips for a few seconds before running into the house with a smile on her face and leaving a stupefied Issei in front of her house. What just happened? He thought as he was shell-shocked that the girl that hated his guts just kissed him on the lips. To think that he was kissed by two girls in one day was unimaginable to him. What just happened, partner? Was your dragon part doing its magic? Like I told you, you unknowingly attracted those girls to you. That is what happens when they are exposed to your aura for a long period of time. They become attached to you. Diedrag answers his thoughts as he saw all that happened to his host this day, and to say that he was impressed at the speed that his host made two girls to show affection towards him so quickly was something that even he couldn't do. "Diedrag, do you think that that Chelsea girl is a threat?" Issei asked. He started walking home after a few minutes of being in a shell-shocked condition after what happened. "To be honest, I don't know yet. I didn't see her abilities. But what is for sure is that she has a powerful sacred gear that in right hands could spell death to anyone. Best to be on your guard, partner. You never know what can happen next," spoke the red dragon as he felt the presence earlier but didn't want to alert his host as he didn't feel any malicious intentions towards him from the girl. "Yeah, I guess you're right. Now though, that leaves us to what we should with Rias and her gang. You don't need to worry about them, partner. As you are now, you can probably take the midget rook, the blonde knight and the crow easily, but her queen is on another level compared to you. You still need to improve your stamina and durability," said Diedrag. "You really think that I improved that much, Diedrag?" "Yes, and if you continue to improve, at this rate you will be able to match your king in no time." "Thanks, pal. That coming from you means a lot. Any time, partner. Now I'm going to sleep, so when you need me you know how to call me." With that said, Diedrag cut the connection as he went to his slumber, leaving Issei alone, as he entered his home and went to bed. Just as he was about sleep, a red magic circle appeared in his room and from it came Rias, as she looked depressed. Rias, what are you doing here at this time of night?" asked Issei as he was confused as to why she was here. "Sorry, Issei, but I have no choice," she spoke as she quickly climbed on top of him and started undressing. What are you talking about? And why are you undressing yourself?" he questioned as he felt uncomfortable. "You are the only one that will do this for me, Eyes. Kiba won't do it since his knight's pride won't let him and I can't think of anyone else. Now stay down, I will do the rest," she answered as she unhooked her bra and threw it away. Issei, hearing this, started to get angry. Sure, he was glad and was looking forward to having sex with her, but the way it sounded and what she was doing was that set him off. She was using him again for her selfish things, and he hated being used. "And why do you think I will do it with you?" he asked as he started to pick himself up and pushing Rias away from him. "What? Am I not good enough for you?" she questioned, with her eyes slightly narrowing. "That's not what I mean." He didn't finish his sentence as he saw another magic circle that he didn't recognize. As the circle shined brighter, a figure appeared out of it. When the light died down, Issei was left like he just saw a figure revealed itself to be a beautiful woman in her 20s. Her hair, which flows all the way down to her back, featured a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. She was wearing a maid outfit that made her look, in his opinion, even sexier. Seeing her, Rias just sighed as she knew that it was too late for her plan to work. "So what brings you here, Grafia? Was it father, brother, or is this of your own accord?" the red-haired princess asked as she lifted herself from her pawn. On all three accounts, my lady. The woman known as Graphia answered in a regal tone that very impressed Issei. Why do lower yourself to this worthless specimen, my lady? You should know better than to expose yourself to the lower classes. You are the heiress of the Gremory after all, said Graphia as she looked at the position the two teens were. Issei didn't know if he felt insulted or to be thankful to the maid for stopping Rias, so he settled for both. You know I'm not some peasant, lady, he told her sharply. That made her looked at him and just raise her eyebrow at him. Graphia, even though you are my brother's queen, I will not tolerate how you treat my cute and adorable servant. Is that understood? Rias said as she relisted a small amount of her power to show her point. Graphia knew that even Rias and her peerage combined couldn't stand up to her even at 10% of her full power, but she also knew that she couldn't do anything to her since she was the little sister of her husband and he was way overprotective over his little sister. So she just did what was expected of her. I'm terribly sorry for my words. My name is Graphia Lucifuge, the head maid of the Gremory and the queen of Rias' brother, she stated as she bowed. Rias never told me that she had a brother, Issei thought until he remembered that he didn't show at the clubroom for more than a month, so even if she wanted to tell him, she couldn't. Apology accepted. My name is Issei Hyodo, the current Securute and the pawn of Rias Gremory. It's pleasure to meet you, Graphia, he said as he stood up and bowed to the maid. Graphia widens her eyes a little bit at hearing that her sister-in-law had gained a very powerful piece. Now that the pleasantries are over, my lady, we need to go. We have a very important meeting to attend to, stated Graphia as she dressed Rias and a little later activated her circle. Can Akeno come with me? Asked Rias as she was now Dries. Princess of Thunder. I see no problem in that. It's acutely a very good thing to have a king escorted by his queen, was the reply from the silver-haired maid. With a nod, Rias turned to her pawn and kissed his cheek. Let's forget all about this, eyes. I will explain everything in the morning. Please come tomorrow, said the Crimson Princess as she teleported with the maid. As soon as they were gone, Issei asked his partner about the queen of Rias's brother. Diedrich, are you awake? I need to ask you something. Yes, partner, I was awoken by a sudden increase in magic. Do you want to know who that maid was and about her master? Questioned Diedrich, as he could clearly feel that the maid was still as strong as he remembered. Yes, if you know about them, maybe that could help in the future, Issei replied. I do know about both of them, and from the look of things it looks like they are still as I remember them. That maid was and still is the second strongest female devil in the underworld, second only to current Mao, has mastery over ice, and if I remember her sister also has it but with a mix of light. Sadly, I can't remember her name, but I did remember how she looked like, and if ever cross paths with her, if she is alive of course, I will tell you if it's her. As for her master, he is the one of the three known super devils. Searsex Lucifer, the master of the power of destruction that your master has but only on a much higher level, answered Diedrich as he still tried to remember about a little girl that his last host. Wow, they are that strong, Diedrich? Asked Issei as he felt that even at his full power and then some he wouldn't stand even a second against any of them. They are, partner, and I won't lie. If you want to get your own peerage, you would need to up your training regiment even more. But we will need to find a strong dragon to train you, since only a dragon can train a dragon. And you need to be ready for pain, a lot of pain if you plan to go to the next stage of power and unlock Balance Breaker, said Diedrich with a battle-hungry smile at a thought that his partner was going to get to fight a strong opponent and that he was going to fight someone that was at his level or higher. Issei just sweated and shivered at the thought of having to train and maybe fight against the full-grown dragon. Yeah, that sounds like fun, he said sarcastically as he sounded terrified of that idea. As he finished his conversation with his dragon resident, Issei fell to sleep having no idea what was going to happen tomorrow. As the morning came, Issei woke up having a very bad feeling about this meeting at the old school. With that in mind, he got ready and headed towards school. After about 10 to 15 minutes he arrived at the clubroom only to be surprised at seeing the maid standing beside his king. Oh, Ais, you made it. That's good, now we can start the meeting, stated Rias as she felt a little at ease that her Securute had finally arrived. My lady, do you want me to tell them? Graphia asked politely. Shaking her head to the sides, Rias replied, No, I will tell them. After all, this is my problem and my peerage should hear it from me. Taking a deep breath, Rias started to say until something interrupted her. Everyone, the truth is that I'm in Enga. Everyone turns to look at what stopped her from saying anything further, and what they saw was a magic circle with an unknown symbol to Issei at least. Though that only lasted for a moment, since Rias answered his unasked question with venom in her voice. Phoenix. And done. I hope that you liked how I made Chelsea look. I will confess I didn't read or watch till the end AGK to the end, but I hope that you will forgive me if I made her too much OOC. And to answer your questions that are sure to come. Yes, in my story Grafia is going to have a sister and a brother. You know who he is if you read the LN. But I will not answer who is going to be her sister yet, you will find out in a few chapters. As for why Murayama and Katase felt jealousy, I will answer that latter in a few chapters, so don't worry. It will have a very logical explanation. Now you may ask, what about Rainier that appeared in this chapter but didn't do anything? Well, let's say that in the next she is going to make Issei extremely uncomfortable. First, previous ch4 of 36. Next, chapter 5. Preparation for the big battle. Author note. Well, here we are again. I don't think I need to say a lot about what would happen in this chapter, since for those that are familiar with Lane you would know from the previous one. But we will see Riser making his appearance in Rias training camp. It will also contain some conversation between Chelsea and Issei along with Kendo duo. I would like to thank Revan's Wraith for his massive help. As always, feedback is welcome. If you guys have questions about the story, feel free to PM me and I will answer as best as I can. So, let's get started. I don't own High School DxD, that right goes to its creator, Ishibumi Ichie. Normal speech. Diedrich speaking. Attic name. Chapter 5. Preparation for the big battle. Phoenix. Rias said with venom as she saw who appeared out of a magic circle. Out of the circle stepped a young-looking man that appeared to be in his 20s. He had short blonde hair and dark blue eyes. His outfit was a burgundy blazer with matching pants and black shoes. Underneath his open blazer was a simple white shirt. Ah. It's been so long that I have set foot on Earth, voiced the young man. Riser. What are you doing here? Rias questioned as she tried to keep her voice neutral, but it was obvious that she was very close to exploding. Ah, Rias my love. Have you forgotten already about it? Replied the now named blonde man as he took her arm. No, I didn't forget, and it was agreed that I have at least until I graduate from college in a human world. So I ask you again, what are you doing here? She said as she yanked her arm from his grasp. Seeing this and not knowing about anything that was said or what was the talk about, Issei decided to ask the obvious question that was on his mind. What the fuck is going on here, and who is this guy? Issei. This here is Riser Phoenix from the Nobel House of Phoenix. Kiba politely answers, making Issei look at him. And that means what? He questioned again, still not understanding the situation at all. Riser, seeing this exchange, decided to intervene. Riser is surprised that a simple peasant doesn't know who I am. The Riser is disappointed in you, Rias. I thought that you told them about Riser, he said while referring to him in a third person, making them want to facepalm hard. Who are you calling peasant? You overgrown fried chicken? Issei demands as he glared at the nobleman. Predicting that the fight is about to begin, Grafia decided to intervene. Issei, Riser here is from a noble house of Phoenix, as said he is also Rias' fiancé, and thus they are in an arranged marriage. Issei was left stupefied with this info. While he didn't like Rias, he hated arranged marriages. What was the point in being with someone for eternity if you don't love that person? Rias was still fuming about an idea of having to marry a playboy devil who wanted nothing more than to fuck her senseless. She wanted to get married to someone she loved and love her back. Not for political or any other thing, just from love. She wanted nothing short of killing Riser, but she also knew that she didn't have power and experience to do it. That was why she had the Red Dragon Emperor. Even one as weak as Issei could beat him, given enough time to train. While she was in deep thought, Riser decided to take this opportunity to check out the other girls of Rias' peerage, specifically her queen. Come on my dear, let's get married already, you know it's for the greater good of our race, he told her after he finished his gazing and grabbing her hand. That made her return to the real world, where she immediately pushed him back. For the last time, no, Riser. I will not marry you, I will marry someone that I love and that loves me back, she snapped at him, while her eyes turned red and a scary aura surrounded her. If you don't want to marry me the easy way, then Riser will do it the hard way, Riser said in a serious tone as he started generating extremely hot flames in his hands, ready to incinerate anything. What do you say, Rias? If Riser burns you servants to ashes, will that finally make you see reason? he questioned as he was lifting his arm up and pointing the flames toward Issei and Rainier that were standing opposite of him. Finally having enough of this bullshit, Grafia released some of her power to terrify them and to make them take this talk like nobles, like they are or were supposed to be. She wasn't sure anymore. Enough of this. My lady, your parents and brother have expected this from you, so they propose a rating game between Lord Riser and you, she said as she was about to freeze both high-class devils to cool down a little. So they still don't understand. Fine, I will accept what they propose. If I win I'm free, right? She stated as she looked at the maid who just nodded. Ha 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 ha, you really think you can beat Riser? Rias, you are far too fucking weak, and is this all you have to offer in our match? Just 5 people, all of which are as weak as fuck except your queen. She can maybe match my Rook Schwalen, and that is if she is lucky. And Riser has a whole set to boot. Riser arrogantly declared, as he snapped his fingers and another magic circle of fire appeared with 15 people exiting it as the fire swirled around them for a few moments before returning to the circle and disappeared along with it. Issei hated to admit, but this fried chicken sure had a good eye for well-developed or some who had a potential to evolve their figures even further. Women that were present were very good looking and hot. Some had breasts that could match Akino's and Reinare's in her fallen form, while others had a little bit above average. Not that he minds, he welcomed good tits any time of a day, but what caught his eyes was a blonde hair girl that had her hair in a twin drill-like curls, one on each side, dark blue eyes that were mesmerizing, and she was wearing a pink dress with a darker pink bow at the front. She looked a lot like Riser, and if he had to jest, she was his little sister that was also a good looking. As you can see, Riser here accepts. Riser has a full set, and so Riser will give you a handicap. You have 10 days to prepare for the battle to come. Riser continued with an arrogant tone, knowing that he had this in a bag. Very well, if both sides agreed with this, then I, Grafia, will inform the heads of both houses to your agreement. Grafia spoke before disappearing into a magic circular. Riser was about to leave also, but seeing that Issei was looking at his peerage with leech's eyes, he decided to give a final display for today. You Baluna, come here, he ordered, as the busty-looking woman with long purple hair that went all the way to her lower back. She also had purple eyes just like her hair color and was wearing a navy blue tunic top with some golden accents and a white shirt that showed her large breast that bounced and threatened to burst free from their prison, much to Issei's delight. Yes, Moss, she didn't finish her sentence as Riser forcibly kissed her and again started to grope her in front of everyone. Issei was burning red with jealousy as this guy got to do this to a bombshell of a girl. The purple-haired girl could put to shame more than 80% of school's female population without breaking a sweat. Okay, fried chicken, you had your fun, now get lost, you're annoying, Issei stated, finally having enough of this bullshit after watching Riser do nearly everything to a member of his peerage except for having sex with her. Riser sees that you are quite the foul-mouthed peasant, and Riser will enjoy incinerating you in a rating game if you survive till the end. Yeah, we will see about that, UKFC. Replied Issei as he looked Riser in the eyes, not intimidated by a high-class devil in front of him. He was more afraid of Grafia if anything, and she didn't even move a muscle and force all of them to go to their knees. Why, you ungrateful, you wait, Riser said, his eye twitching from the constant barrage of insults that the pawn in front of him said. Riser and his peerage finally left the orc, and the members of the said club finally begun to breathe normally. Well, that was until Rias snapped at Issei. What do you think you are doing, you idiot? She yelled at him as she tried to slap him, but Issei just grabs her hand before it could connect. What? He was annoying. He answered casually. You don't have any idea of what you're doing. You could be executed because of your behavior. Rias scolded him. Even though he didn't interact with them that much after church incident, she still worried about him. Yeah, he said nonchalantly as he took a sit on a sofa that was nearby. After a few seconds the Gremory magic circular appeared, and from it, Grafia appeared looking as regal as ever. The rating game is in effect. Both heads agreed to it. You have from tomorrow 10 days to get ready for the upcoming battle. Use them well, my lady. Grafia informed them as she bowed and then disappeared in a flash of light. Good, that will give us just enough time to get strong enough to beat Riser. So all of you pack your stuff and we will tomorrow go to one of the estates that my family has, and there we will train. Rias informed everyone, who all nodded in response. Well, since it looks like all the talk about game stuff is over, we could talk about what were you doing with 2 normal girls and a sacred gear user in your house, weakling. For the first time since the meeting started, Rainier spoke, getting the attention of all the members present. Issei looked at her in shock and then in rage that she was spying on him again. "And how do you now that you little piece of shit crow?" he questioned with narrowed eyes as he gave her a death glare and started to release his aura that made her pale in fear. I was ordered by our king to follow you after school. So if you are going to let loose hell on someone, leave me behind on you rage path. Half-breed answered quickly, not wanting to get blasted by a rage-fueled dragon to oblivion. Issei turned his death glare to his king, who was also turning a little white from sheer hatred he was emitting to her now as her knees started to shake a little, but she manages to somewhat steady herself to answer him since she was also in silent agreement with her bishop that if she didn't answer quickly enough she would get blasted to oblivion, and that was something that she would like to avoid as much as possible. "Yes, I ordered her to follow you since you were acting strangely. Now then, what were you doing with those girls at your house eyes?" she questioned as she also liked to know what was he doing and who was that sacred gear user. If she had a powerful gear, then Rias could use her in an upcoming fight against Riser. "What was I doing with them is not important to you, my king," he said in a mock tone as he returned his aura and loosed his death glare, making both girls to start breathing normally again. "But, since you are annoying as hell and I know that you will question me till the end of days, you spoiled little princess, I will answer your questions," he finished with a smirk as he saw the angry tick mark on her forehead at the insult he gave her. Era eyes, you are so cute when you are pissed about something, and your domination aura sure is a turn on," giggled Akano as she blushed beside Rias as her M-side was in full forces at the intimidating and dangerous aura that promised a lot of hurt to anyone that opposed him, making Ai's sweat drop as he looked at her blushing face that made her look even cuter. "Okay, now on to the questions. What were you doing with those girls?" Rias asked him as he looked from Akano to her. "I was talking with them, my king. Since as all you can see I started training to get stronger and I asked them, well, 2 girls for help in another department," he told her, not seeing the point to lie to her. "Pervert." Kaneko chipped in with her emotionless voice as she hated perverts and eyes was the embodiment of lust. No Kaneko, I wasn't thinking about that, you perverted girl," I said as he started to think that anytime he said anything that had a girl in a sentence that Kaneko thought about sex or anything related to it. "Then tell us, what were you thinking about, my dear little pawn?" Rias demanded impassionately as she wanted to know what he was doing. "Well, if you must know. I was talking to them how to reduce my perverted side. Since seeing that both Rainier and you used it to get me, it would be nice to control that side so that things don't happen again to me. Happy now, princess?" The pawn answered while looking bored, which started to piss Rias off. "Yes, now the next question. What about that sacred gear user you encountered? What about her?" she pressed on. "What about her?" he asked. "What do you know about her?" Rias asked. "Oh, he knows a lot about her, don't you, my dear darling?" spurred on Rainier as she was enjoying being on offense than on defense against the pawn. Issei was blushing at that thought of Chelsea and him being a pair. "What, you know her eyes and you didn't tell me?" The Princess of Ruin snapped at him, which made him flinch a little. "Well, yes and no," he answered. That made everyone confused. How could he answer like that? It made them suspicious at the thought that he worked behind their back. Seeing their looks of confusion and anger, Issei decided to elaborate what he said. "What I meant by that is that I just met her yesterday and that I don't know what she wants with me. All that I know is that she was spying on me and to see if I had a sacred gear and what power level was I at if I had it. She said that since I was more or less equal to her strength that she decided to approach me directly than to do it like both of you did," answered Issei as he looked at both the bishop and the king. He didn't mention that she said that she was from the different faction and that she was to recruit him to help her cause. He, eyes, you are really a womanizer," giggled Akano as she licked her lips seductively at him. She liked this more matured eyes a lot more than a perverted one. "Well, I don't think I'm a womanizer, but thank you, Akano," Issei answered, blushing a little. "Didn't she tell you anything else?" "She did say that I will see her soon and that was it. Now that we finished this, when do you want me to come here with my stuff for the training?" he said. "Okay. Everyone, the meeting is finished. I will see you at 8 p.m. here so we can go training. That's it," Rias told her peerage as they nodded and left. When Ais left the building, he started to text Murayama that he needed to tell Katase and her something important. "Hey Murayama, can Katase and you meet me at the park in about half an hour? I need to tell you something important." After about a minute or two he received a reply from the brunette-haired girl. "This better be good, Ais, we were just about to go training." "Yup, don't worry, just come to the park." With text sent, he started walking toward the park where he was about to meet his 2 new tutors. As he entered the park, he went to the first bench he found empty and sat there thinking about random things till the duo arrived. What he wasn't expecting was that after 10-15 minutes to come face to face with the girl that was one of the topics on the meeting he had with his peerage. "Well, who do we have here? What are you doing here all alone, my dear?" said the voice that was very familiar to Issei as he turned around to see the auburn-haired girls sitting beside him on the bench. "Oh Chelsea. What are you doing here? You know that the devils are following me, right?" he questioned as he saw her moving closer and closer to him. "Yup, but don't worry. I came here to tell you something, my sweetheart," she replied in teasing tone that made Issei blush. "And what is that you wanted to tell me, my darling?" he said in a sing-song voice as he saw her blush a little bit at his teasing. "Well, since you are so sweet to me, darling, I would tell you how you can defeat that. How did you call him?" Yes, fried chicken. Nice nickname you gave him, by the way," she replayed in her sweet tone. That made Issei's eyes go wide. How did she know that he was about to fight a phoenix? How no one noticed her presence? There were 1 ultimate and 2 high-class devils, and even they didn't spot her. How do you know all that? Were you spying on me at a meeting?" he asked, feeling a little dread creeping up his spine at this girl. "Yup," she said in a happy tone as she took a lollipop from her pocket and put it in her mouth. "And?" he questioned, wanting to know what she was going to tell him. "Well, if you want to defeat such a troublesome opponent, dear, you need to have either the power that can with one punch destroy his fighting spirit or stop his regeneration and then beating him senseless. Or of course, use some holy objects to beat him that would make him surrender." She spoke as she patted Issei on the head, seeing his head drop down. "Great, and I don't have that much power or magic reserves to make his regeneration stop even for a few seconds. Holy objects are out of the question since I'm a devil and can't even hold them, let alone use them against him," he said in a defeated tone as he felt that all was lost even before he begun. "You do have 10 days to train to get to a level where you can at least hold your own for a little while and give the others time to help you overpower him," she instructed, not wanting to see such a handsome man and someone that she thought cute to have a bitter look on his face. "Yeah, I guess you are right. Anyway, I think you should leave before you are spotted by the devils," he said as he felt a little bit encouraged by her. "You are welcome. Well, talk to you later, my sweetie. See ya." With a kiss on the cheek, she left him and again made him froze from the affection she gave him. Even though it was small, Issei still wasn't used to it. This was all new to him and he liked it a lot. Not 10 minutes after Chelsea left, Katase and Murayama showed up with their training bags. "Here we are, eyes. What was it that you wanted us to know that was important?" Murayama stated as Issei stood up and looked at both of them and find it almost impossible to not look at their bodies. "The things is, that from tomorrow and for the next 2 weeks, I won't be in Kuo since we, as in Orc, need to go training for an upcoming battle against the members of the Phoenix Peerage. That's what I wanted to tell you so that you know why I wouldn't be at school and for you too not to go on a rampage on me when I return. I hope you can understand this," Issei said as he bowed his head down in an apologetic way to show how sorry he was for not starting his training with the girls, but being a pawn of Rias put Rias' priorities up and his down on a list of things to do. The 2 girls looked at each other and understood that he wasn't in a situation to choose what he wanted to do but was more of a line forced to go to the battle for her. So they decided to, since they couldn't do much, at least show him support in his upcoming struggle. "When you put it that way, there isn't much we can do, but when you go to fight, give a few good hits for us, will you?" asked Katase as she smiled a little towards Rias' pawn as he looked at the 2 in shock. "You 2 are all right with this?" he questioned, still not believing what he was hearing. "Yes, we are, eyes. We can't force you to stay, and as Rias is your king you have to obey her. But we wish you luck in your upcoming battle and hope that you return in one piece," said Murayama, as she hugged him, making his face go full red from all affection he was getting from her. First was a kiss, now hugs. He was seriously thinking that she was in love with him. "Thank you. Guys, it really means a lot to me," he softly spoke as he returns the hug, much to Murayama's joy. "You are welcome, eyes, and thank you for telling us about that. Now come on, Mur. You can hug and kiss him all you want later when he returns. We need to go training," said Katase as she smirked, seeing her best friend turning crimson red with embarrassment. "You are the one to talk. You also want to hug and kiss him almost as much as me," Murayama replayed back, making Katase now turn pink as her hair. Issei was left for a loop now. His mind couldn't process was falling for him also. He needed to ask Diedrich if that had to do anything with him, since he wasn't sure what could make Katase change her opinion on him from wanting to kill him to loving him. "Murayama. Let's go now. yelled the pink-haired teen as she was feeling very embarrassed that her friend told him of all people that she was starting to slowly change her feeling to him. Alright, we are going, sheesh. Well, see you eyes in 2 weeks. Murayama told him as she also, like Chelsea not 10 minutes earlier, kissed him on a cheek, as the two kendo girls left the poor boy in a semi-conscious state. What the fuck just happened? Issei asks himself, still not believing what he experienced in the last half an hour. From a surprise visit from Chelsea to a semi-confession of both kendo girls. It was too much for him, so he just went home to pack his stuff for the upcoming training field trip. It was now 8 p.m. and all the members of the orc were present before their king. President, everyone is here, just as you ordered, Akeno informed. Good. Now, as I said earlier, we are going to my family estate to train. It's a good place to practice, and can you please make a transportation circle, Akeno? Rias explained the whereabouts of the training camp she would be taking them as her queen nodded and started to make transportation spell to take them there. When we get there, you all can get comfortable first, and then we will see just how much your current power is before having a dinner and calling it for the day, and tomorrow we will start real training, Rias added just before the circle was done. Everyone nodded, and a second later the transportation circle came to life as everyone stepped in and teleported to the camp. Well, here we are, Rias spoke to the peerage as what they saw blow their minds, well, Issei's and Rainare's at least. What we are training here? Rainare stuttered as she tried to get her bearings but couldn't. All around them were mountains and forests with a stream that could be heard in the background. In front of them was a building that looked to be more like a mansion than a house that would be their base for next week and a half. Wow, this place is perfect to just sit back and relax, stated the pawn of the group as he looked around him and saw that nature was almost too inviting to just relax and lose yourself to it. Yes, it is very beautiful here, my adorable servants, but we are here to train, so go to your rooms, leave your stuff and meet me here in front of the house in 5 minutes so we can see what we are working with, ordered the king as everyone went to put their belongings in their rooms. 5 minutes later, everyone stood in front of their king waiting to see what she wanted. Alright, now that everyone is here, we still have enough time to see what are we working with. So Rainaire and Eyes, you two will show us what can you two do. Since I know what Akeno, Kiba, and Kaneko can. Rainaire, you're up first, so power up as high as you can and try to destroy this rock, Rias said as she pointed to a large rock that was about 30 meters away. If you insist, princess, Bishop said as she started powering up and releasing her fallen wings. It took Gremory Group by surprise that the once fallen angel now turned devil had this much power in her. It looked like Issei's gambit to recruit her paid off. Well, that is all I can muster, princess. Now, how do you want me to destroy that pebble? With magic or power? Rainaire said in arrogant voice, seeing the surprised look on everyone's faces. First with magic, then with raw power, was the answer she got from the king. As you wish. Rainaire formed her trademark spear from light and threw it at the rock as hard as she could. When the spear hit the rock, it blew it to smithereens. With a satisfied nod, Rias made another rock for Rainaire to destroy. Rainaire took flight and hit it with all her mighty, destroying half of the rock, leaving the bottom part only. That was a good display, Rainaire. Now my eyes, your turn. With boost gear or without? Asks the pawn as he stood in the position where Rainaire stood only a minute ago. Let's see you without it first, and then boost up to the max and then release all. Rias instructed, wanting to see how his month worth of training went and to see its results. Okay, here it goes, said Eyes as he started to power up in his base form. After about minute or two he reached his limit and the results were shocking, to say the least. He was at the level in strength that was even with Kaneko with her rock trait, which was saying a lot since he didn't promote, but on the other side he was extremely weak in terms of magic. Well, I can say that you did a good work during that month, Eyes. But you are extremely lacking in a magic department. How many time you can boost? Rias told him, being very impressed with the result of her pawn. Not sure. I think I can boost up to 20 max, but after that wears off I'm left in such a weakened state that I need about an hour to get my strength up to use booster gear again. He answered as he remembered very well how he tried to boost to the max and how it felt after explosion wore off. So what is the max you can use that won't hinder you much? Rias asks. About 10 is optimal, but 15 is the max that I can endure with a short break after it, he replied. Nodding to that, Rias pointed to the rock, which was repaired and looked like it was made even stronger. I do have a new attack that I want to try, so this would be a good place to do it. He spoke to them as the booster gear appeared and started to give its signature boost. After a minute or so, Issei, feeling that it was about enough boosts, he called explosion and lifted his left arm in the direction of the rock. Concentrating on the attack, a small sphere formed in front of the gear as it shined in red light. Issei pulled back his armored arm and then hit the sphere of red light as strong as he could, calling the name of the attack. Dragon Shot. When his armored hand hit the orbit, it released an intimidating laser beam attack that completely destroyed the rock and went through to make a trench all the way towards the top of the mountain, where it exploded in a massive explosion that made a small earthquake. That attack blew everyone's minds. If anyone took that attack head on, it would leave the devastating result to almost anyone in a range from low class all the way to weak high class. That was an excellent performance, Issei. We will work on your hand-to-hand combat, swordplay, and speed. Also endurance for you to have a chance to endure your current max boost and for it to increase. Magic is also important, so we will work on that latter during the training. Rainier, we will also increase your magic and combat skills. Your magic is acceptable, but your physical strength is lacking severely. Their king informed the duo as they nodded in acknowledgement. Good, now I think that we could all go and relax for tonight before starting in the morning. With that said, Rias entered the house that would be their home for next 10 days with all of her servants following her. In the next few days, Issei and Rainier were beaten to shit by the members of the peerage. Akeno almost regalry left Rainier for death, and Issei was brutally beaten by Kaneko and embarrassed by Kiba's speed and sword skill. Of course, those punishments in Rainire's and Issei's mind did help in their stamina, and they did learn some techniques and how to handle some situations. But during his magic training with Akeno, when he was at relative ease since she didn't focus on hand-to-hand or sword, Issei found that something was pulling him towards Norse and Slavic magic more than toward devil magic. As his reserves of magic slowly build up, he could almost feel another presence in him, though when he asked Diedrich about it all, he gotten for the answer was that one of his predecessor was slowly awaking, and that is why he knew about those magics but couldn't use them until the person that was awakening has full awaken. But as much as he tried, he couldn't use even the simplest of spells that Akeno taught him, which frustrated him a lot. Thought after almost a week into their training, it was finally time for Issei and Rainier to duke it out so the others could see how much they improved. After their match, it was Kaneko's and Kiba's turn, and last was king versus queen. Okay, you two, it's time to see how much you improved, so go full force. Against Phoenix and his peerage, you will need to outpowered or outsmarted them to win. So when the two of you are ready to begin. Also eyes you can promote if you want, said Rias as she stood with others to the sideline, giving the two combinations enough space to fight. Well, it's time to show you weakling who is the superior here, Rainier spoke in her overly arrogant tone that started to piss off Issei. Yeah, you wish, little crow. If you have forgotten, I was the one that beat the crap out of you when we fought last time. He answered in a confident voice as he thought about what piece to promote to. After a few seconds, he decided and activated his sacred gear that immediately started boosting him. Promotion night, I said, making the heiress think as to why he chose that piece when queen or a rock would give him overwhelmed power that would easily defeat the bishop. When the fight started, it was made clear to her why he chose knight instead of a rock or queen. When the pawn pieces turned to knight, Issei exploded like a rocket towards Rainier, who had barely enough time to get away from a devastating blow that I sent at her. In retaliation, Rainier summoned two spears of light and threw it at him, who used his booster gear to block them as he made his way towards her with incredible speed. Seeing that her attempt to pierce him was a futile, she just formed her spears and went into head-on charge. As Issei tried once again to hit her with his armored hand, she used one of her spears to block, which proved to be a wrong move as his fist smacked her spear like it was nothing and embedded deep in her stomach, sending her flying. As she recovered her bearing, she was immediately forced to move as another punch went towards her, this time to the head. As she dodged it, she could feel the raw power from the punch as the tree that was behind her was hit with the shockwave that destroyed it in an instant, and anything in a 15-meter radius suffered damage from it. And that made her shiver in fear at the thought of what would have happened if that attack went through. Shaking her head, she made 15 spears and sent them towards Issei as he tried to evade them but was hit with a few that left him slightly injured. What are you, a monster? Where did you get all that power? Rainier demanded, seeing that her attacks were almost nullified. While you were sucking dicks and laying around, I was training so that I can become as strong as I can, you little crow. He answered as he dodged a few more attacks sent his way from now fuming fallen devil hybrid. Why you? I'm going to make you pay for that, you little cockroach. Rainier yelled as she started bombarding him with all she had. Issei was overwhelmed by the sheer number of spears and spells that he had to dodge. And every time he got hit, it hurt him a lot. He knew he had to finish this quickly or Rainier would brutalize him with the amount of power she was realizing. As he dodged, he started to gather energy in his armored palm, reading it for a moment where he can spot a presentable site to him to unleash his dragon shot that would surely secure him enough time to cross the distance between them and make her surrender. After a few more seconds he found an opening and let loose his ultimate attack. Dragon shot. He fired his attack just in time as more than 15 spears were near him. His attack completely obliterated every single spear that was in its path as it hurled toward Rainier, who seeing it put the strongest barrier she could muster. It was all for nothing as the blast ripped through it like a hot knife through butter. Rainier took the attack head-on and was sent again flying, landing 50 meters away from the spot where she stood. She was drained from it as she was left unconscious. Issei was on his knees after that fight that took a lot more out of him, since he made that attack strong enough to destroy her barrier that he would admit was powerful. Bravo, that was an excellent fight, Eyes. Kiba, please wake Rainier up. She also fought well against a power type like Eyes. Rias applauded as her knight went to wake Rainier up and help her come back to the group. Well done Rainier, you made me proud. You managed to endure and even damage Eyes in this fight. You come a long way from when we met. Rias told her gently as she patted Rainier on the head. Yeah, but still not enough to beat him, Rainier spoke to her. Well, don't sell yourself short. He did have a head start on you, and from the looks of him, he had to put out a lot of power in his last attack. Get some rest now. We have only a day or two to train before the game. She encourages her bishop, knowing what it's like to have your attack do so little damage. Next was the Knight vs Rock, as they showed a very intensive fight that finished in Kaniko's victory, due to Kiba's small durability and her brutal punches that were on par with Issei's with about 2 to 3 boosts. Finally, it was the grand finale as King and Queen duck it out. It was a fight full of magic of all kinds. Rias tried to overpower Akeno, but every time it looked like she was about to be a victor, Akeno managed to pull a quick surprise attack on her king. In the end, it was decided to call it a draw, as no one was able to tell which would be a victor after half an hour of magic battle, leaving both teams tired. This combat practice continued for the last part of the trip, with changing partners for more efficiency. The last day of the trip, it was decided that it would be a day to relax and to return all the stamina and energy that was lost, and to everyone get closer to each other and have fun. That last day was almost torture to Issei, as both Akeno and Rainier tested him with their provocative bodies that made it very hard for Issei to not lose all of his self-control, which wasn't much, to get on both of them even if he was in a bad relationship with one of them. Rias also joined in, fuck Issei's mind. Fun as she started showing him all her body had to offer, which made his nose bleed and his brain to go offline. The day after his torture, pleasure, was the day that they were waiting for, the day of the big match. The match that will determine Rias Gremory's fate. As Issei entered the Orc building, he privately felt anxiety that was building up. In the clubroom, everyone was doing their own things as they were waiting for the battle to start. Kaniko was strapping her fingerless gloves that had a cat's paw on them. Kiba was polishing his sword. Rainier was making and dispelling her spears of light, while his king and queen were casually drinking their tea and talking about some other things. Issei decided to take a seat on one of the sofas that were in the room and have a quick conversation with his pal Diedrich. So do you think, Diedrich, do we have a chance in this battle? Issei mentally asks his partner, which was rearing to have a good battle. Yes partner, there is always a way to beat someone. Everyone has a weakness that can be exploited. You just have to find it, answered the mighty Red Dragon Emperor. Yeah, but what if we are not strong enough to exploit it? Questioned Issei, as he felt that even now that he can boost up to 30 times, it was still not enough to beat someone of a riser's caliber. You need to believe in yourself, partner. If you wish to go up and free yourself, then you need to start proving to everyone that you're not just someone that got lucky to have me. Diedrich spoke, as he also hated to be under someone's control as much as his host. But Eyes needed to overcome this obstacle in front of him to be able to move up. Yes, you are right, pale as always. Thank you for reminding me of my goal. He thanked the ancient dragon as he was feeling a new fire in him started to burn. One last thing, partner. I found out who is that presence that was waking up. And from the looks of thing, you will need only a little more power to awaken her, stated Diedrich. Her? Issei asked, as he felt a bit of his perverted nature coming back at the thought of a beauty that might be awakening. Before Diedrich could answer, Graphia appeared, still in her maid uniform, formed the magic circular. My lady, is everyone ready for the battle? Graphia asked in her regal voice. Yes, Graphia, everyone is here and is ready to go. Issei's master answered as Graphia nodded and then created a new circular. Everyone please step onto the magic circular that will take you directly to the battleground. Good luck everyone, instructed Graphia as everyone did what was told and vanish in the bright light. When the light died down they were at the exact spot where they entered a magic circular, making Issei confused. I thought that we are going to the battleground, not to the orc clubroom, he stated as he looked around. We are eyes in an artificial dimension and it looks like it's a copy of our school. That Riser sure has some guts for doing this. Akeno answers him as he nodded, satisfied with the information he was given. Everyone gather around me. It's almost time to start this game. So let's do our best and beat the crap out of this, how Issei call his fried chicken. Rias told them in a mighty voice to bring their spirits up. Yes, President. All members shouted as all of them made a final quick check of their gears before the match. Now is showtime, thought Rias as she eagerly awaited Graphia to start the game. And done. Author note. Well, that reaps the preparation for the rating game and Riser's introduction. In the next chapter, the battle will commence. King. Eyes Hyodo Queen. Mutated Piece, Knight. Knight. Bishop. Revel Bishop. Rook. Rook. Mutated Piece. Pawn. Chelsea, 6x, Pawn. Murayama Pawn. Katase, first, previous ch5 of 36 next. Chapter 6. Rating Game Part 1a, and hello again. The rating game is finally here. Now before we begin I would like to tell you that there is going to be 2 parts to this. And after the game, we will have what happened to Mur, Katase and Chelsea in the time when Issei wasn't there, and you will find what made Mur and Katase to fell for him. Also, I will put Issei's peerage at the end of the chapter so you guys can know who will be in and what position. Just to inform you, I already pick his peerage and have a plan when he will meet and how his future members. Thanks to Revan for beta reading, talking, thinking. Diedrich Attack Rating Game Part 1. As they waited for Graphia to announce the start of the game, Rias took the opportunity to unleash what remained of Issei's sealed powers that his outburst at church didn't unleash. Eyes, come here and sit in front of me, Rias told her pawn in a calm voice that made him confused. Sure, but are you sure that we could sit down and chat while the game is about to start? He questioned as he did what he was told. Don't worry. Rating games were created so that it would prepare devils on how to handle every type of situation. From blitzkrieg to a more objective type, like infiltration or capturing and holding specific strategic points that were represented by flags. Informed him Akeno as she just finished brewing tea. That is correct, and you don't need to be worried, Eyes. I'm just going to unlock the power that was sealed when I revived you. Rias spoke as Eyes did what he was told. As Rias put her hand on his head he started gloving crimson, and after a moment or two, he could feel the power in him rising as he looked at her with wide eyes. What is this? What is this power I feel? He asked in shock at the new power that was flowing through his veins and couldn't help but feels awestruck. That power, my dear cute Eyes, is the power I had to lock up when you were revived. Your power is dangerous, and leaving it running wild would harm you even more. At the church you almost unleashed all of your power, and all of us would be dead if you did. However, you were able to regain control over yourself before that could happen. She explained as Issei stood up and started to power up a bit to feel his new powers that were dormant till now. He felt like he could fight anyone and still be at the top. But Diedrich decided that it was time for him to get his head back to reality. Partner, as much as I also enjoy your added strength, you still need a way how to defeat a phoenix, and that's not that easy even with your power. Diedrich stated as he too felt the increase in power of his host that surprised him a little, that if he was a little more powerful then maybe he would get a balance breaker state earlier than most of his host would. Yeah, you are right Diedrich, I need to focus now, he answered. At that moment all members of the Gremory and Fenix household heard Graphia's announcement. Hello everyone. I am Graphia, a maid from the House of Gremory, and today I will be the arbiter of the rating match between the House of Gremory and the House of Phoenix. In the name of my master, Sirzex Lucifer, I will be keeping my eye on this match. By using both Rias and Razor opinion, we created this battlefield, which is a replica of the school, Kuo Academy, which Rias attends to in the human world. The location where both teams were transported will be their base. Rias' base would be the Occult Research Cub's clubroom located in the old school building. Razor base would be the student council's room located in the new building. For the pawns to use promotion, please head to the enemy's base to do it. You have 5 minutes to strategies. After 5 minutes the game will begin. Your time to strategies begins now. So I need to get to fried chicken's base to promote. That would be difficult. Issei said after hearing what Grafia said. That's why my adorable little eyes, we are going to make a plan to help us get a victory here, Ria said to her pawn. Kiba, can you please bring me a map of the school? She requested her blonde knight as he nodded and left to look for it. It only took a few seconds before the blonde boy returned with a map with him that he spread in front of Rias. Here it is, President. President, if you would, I can make traps in the forest near our base so that when Riser's pawns make their way through there we can ambush them and put them out of commission, he said as he presented the map of school to Rias and showed her where he was planning to set up his traps for the unwanted guests that would be making their way here. Yes, that looks like a perfect place to set them. Kiba, you go do that, while Akano will create a mist so that they don't spot the traps. She agreed to his plan as it looked perfect for reducing the manpower gap between them. Yes, President, was the reply from both the blonde knight and priestess of thunder. Meanwhile, Kaneko, I want Issei and you to go to the gym and hold of Riser's pieces that will be there until Akano finish making her mist, and when she gives you the signal, retreat so that she can blow it up. And hopefully, take some of the enemies with it. After that, you will regroup near the track field with Kiba and push forward towards Riser's base, Rias told her group. And what do you want me to do, Princess? Rainier questioned as she noticed that she wasn't mentioned in the plan. I need you to stay here and support me if some of the enemy's piece break through here. Since you have a healing gear, it would be a suicide to send you to the front with others. On that note, if some of you are too injured, retreat so that Rainier can heal you. Even if one of you are to be put out of the game, it could be catastrophic for us. She explained her whole plan to the group as she knows that she would need all of them to beat Riser. Yes, President, came the reply from her group as they went to finish their preparations for the upcoming battle. Issei, Rainier here, Akano said as she gave the duo 2 small transceivers. What are they for? Issei asked as he looked over the small transceiver that he was given. That's for communicating with us during a fight. Everyone has one, and don't worry, each high-class devil gets his set of transceivers so that it can't listen in during the game. So when I finish with the mist I will tell you when to evacuate so you don't get also blown up, hehe. Akano snickered as her sadistic side begun to creep up, making both Rainier and Issei back away from her as they shivered in fear. Why yeah, I will keep that in mind. Thanks, Akano, he said as he composed himself to a task ahead of him. Your 5 minutes to strategies is up. The rating game between the House of Gremory and the House of Phonics begins now. Grafia announces as the school bell rings to signalize the start of the battle. Ring 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 ring, all right my adorable servants, go out there and make me proud. Yes, they all shouted as they left the orc building to face off against whatever Riser had to offer. Akano immediately took to the skies and started creating a mist to cover Kiba as he started putting traps in the woods just west of the clubroom to ambush and take out any opposition that may come. Issei and Kaneko made their way towards the gym that was a strategic position from where both sides could come into direct contact with one another. In essence, who controlled the gym controlled the field. So instead of controlling it and in fear of losing her pieces, Rias decided to, after getting the opening skirmish with Riser's pieces, to evacuate hers and let her queen blow up those that were left inside. Kaneko, what do you think? Do we have a chance against someone as Riser? Issei questioned as they were closing in on the gym with no opposition. Yes, we have. Issei, watch out, there are 3 enemies that I can sense in the gym. Kaneko answered in her emotionless tone that made Issei wonder does she had any emotions whatsoever. Okay, thanks for the tip. Now how do we go about this? Issei must as he saw Kaneko going to the back door. He decided that it was time to use his sacred gear as it immediately started to power him up. Booster gear, he quietly said as the gear appears on his left arm. Boost, Diedrig's voice was heard as he announced the power-up. Well, let's start this party, don't you think, Kaneko? Issei asked her as she just nodded and entered the gym. Well, look what the trash brought, said a voice that Issei thought it belongs to a kid. Come on you douchebags, we don't have time to play hide and seek with you, spoke another voice. This time it was a lot matured than the last. Oi oi, stop with the insults, we know that you are all arrogant, but sheesh, this is too much, Issei declared as Kaneko and he made themselves know. So what do we have here, a midget and a wannabe Red Dragon Emperor? Said again the mature voice that Issei now saw came from the beautiful, well-endowed young woman of Chinese descent with shoulder-length black hair and blue-green outfit consisted of a navy blue kipao with gold accents, a white sash around her stomach, and black, low-heeled shoes. Her outfit gave Issei an almost perfect view of her breast and legs that were on full display, much to his pleasure. Beside her, there were 3 more girls that in Issei's opinion looked cute. "Midget," Kaneko said in a low tone as her eyebrow twitched from that insult about her size. "Well, seeing that you girls know who we are, mind introducing yourselves to us?" Issei politely questioned, as he would love to know those beautiful girls. "My name is Shuilin, the rook of Lord Riser," the Chinese beauty answered while getting in battle position. "My name is Mira," the blue-haired girl told. Making Issei looked at her, and he had to question himself as for how in the hell did she make her hair have 4 ponytails, of which 2 also wore red kimono with a white shirt. "Our names are Il and Nell," the twins shouted cheerfully. The look-alike. Both girls had turquoise hair with a ribbon on opposing sides of their head, most like so they could distinguish between the war PE clothes, and in their hands they had a chainsaw that made Issei step aback little at seeing that. "Pleasure to meet you 4. Kaneko, how are we going to go about this?" Issei spoke as he looks at Kaneko, who had an emotionless look in her eyes. "I will take the rook, you take the pawns, Issei," she answered as she took a battle stance before lunging at the rock counterpart. Slice, slice, slice. Issei heard as he looked towards the duo voices, only to see the twins running at him with their chainsaw ready to chop him to pieces. "Fuck KKK. He screams as he started running away from them, only for a blue-haired teen to stand in his way with her staff to block his way. As he saw Mira, she tried to hit him with her staff while the twins swung their chainsaw at him. Issei was forced to jump high into the air over Mira to escape from the massacre that would be if he was left standing. "Wow," was all that Mira said as her eyes followed Issei soar high above her before landing behind her. "Wow, I didn't know that I can do that," Issei said in shock as he did something that till recently was only in his imagination. Slice, slice, slice. He heard as he looked towards the twin sisters that were again charging at him with their chainsaws ready to chop him into pieces. "Aw, man, can I get a break?" Issei asked himself as he started to dodge the twin and Mira, who join in. "Boost." Diedrich's voice was heard as Issei felt a power surge in his body. "That's it, if I can keep them at bay for a few more boosts then I can take them out in one shot," thought Issei as he continued to dodge the attacks that were to close for comfort. Meanwhile, in the other part of the gym, Kaneko was facing Shuilin, that was said to have the power of the queen. "Well, what do you say we start this fight, midget?" Shuilin said mockingly as Kaneko's eyebrows started twitching from the insults the rook continued to send her way. "You will pay for that," Kaneko declared in a low emotionless tone as she charged at the Phoenix rook, who entered the defensive stance. Kaneko threw a punch at Shuilin, who easily dodged it with little movement. As she continues to dodge her attacks, Shuilin spotted a good opening and with her fist coated in fire attacked, sending an uppercut to Kaneko, who managed to dodge it barely, but in the process, her school uniform was half destroyed. "You are not that bad, little girl," Shuilin said as she started to bombard Kaneko with volley after volley of punches and kicks that she had a hard time dodging, as a few of those kicks and punches hit their target, making a young girl grunt in pain as she felt the full power of those attacks. "You aren't bad yourself," was the reply from Kaneko as she backflips to avoid another punch to the stomach. At that moment both girls felt some distortion in the air as they both turned to look at their pawns, who were fighting on the other side of the gym. Only to see Issei generating a small ball of concentrated red energy in front of his armored fist. Kaneko, knowing what would happen, quickly moved to the side as Issei launched his special attack at the trio who he was fighting. "Dragon shot." Diedrich and Issei shouted in a union as the small ball of energy quickly transformed into a massive energy beam that headed towards the girls, who were not quick enough to dodge it and were caught in the blast. Taking the advantage that her opponent was in shock at the sheer raw power the pawn had unleashed, Kaneko grabbed Issei and started dragging him out of the gym. As the 3 girls barely survived that attack, started getting up and Shuilin out of her shock. "Hey, the battle isn't over. You cowards, come back so we can destroy you in the name of Lord Riser," Mira yelled after the retreating members of the Gremory household. "Akeno, do it now." It was all that small white-hair girl said as Issei and her left the gym, only a half a second before a massive thunderbolt hit the gym, destroying it in an instant, taking with it 4 members of the Riser's peerage. "Lord Riser's 1 rock and 3 pawns retired," Grafia stated. "Good work, Akeno." Issei praised her as she flew above them with her devil wings out. "Oof. Thank you, Issei, that means a lot coming from you," Akeno said as she licked her finger while having a faint blush on her face at the praise. "Lord Riser's 3 pawns retired," Grafia announced again. Sweet, that means Kiba took care of things. Issei started to cheer at the good start of the battle, with Kaneko giving a small smile as well. Just as they thought that they were in a clear, Kaneko sensed an incoming attack and pushed Issei out of the way as she took the full force of it. As the explosion rips through the area, Issei and Akeno were left stunned at what happened. "Kaneko, are you alright?" Issei yelled as he quickly made his way to her just as blue light surrounds her. "Yeah, Issei. I wish I could do more, but this is where it ends for me," Kaneko softly said with tears in her eyes as she vanished. "Lady Rias 1 Rock retired," Grafia announced in her neutral tone. "Queen takes a rook. Now it's time for Queen to take the pawn." Suddenly Eubeluna appeared in all her glory with her devil wings spread wide open. "Bomb Queen, Issei, get out of here and go regroup with Kiba. I will fight her," Akeno firmly told him as she was fully intending to duke it out with Eubeluna. "But Akeno, yo!" Issei started to argue only for Akeno to shot some of her lightning at him. "Issei, I said I will fight her. Now get out of here before she takes you also," Akeno said. She knew that if Issei were to fall, all was lost. "Fine, you win. Kick her ass, Akeno." With a heavy sigh, Issei turned around and started sprinting toward track field. Seeing that her target was running away, Eubeluna started to charge up her attack only to abandon it for an evasive maneuver as Akeno shoot her lightning at her. Now, you leave Issei out of this. I'm your opponent, Bomb Queen," Akeno sweetly said as her face and eyes showed that she was now in her S mode. "Tisk, fine Thunder Priestess. And don't call me that," Eubeluna said as she took her position waiting for her opponent to attack her. "Good luck, Issei, Kiba," Akeno said to herself before unleashing all her might on the Riser Queen. While the battle for the gym was underway, Kiba was hiding in the forest near the Orc building as Akeno was casting her illusion and her own traps. "Akeno, how much longer?" Kiba asked as he detected something coming his way. "I just finished with traps, Kiba. You are all set to that. After you finish here, regroup with Issei and Kaneko at the track field and move toward Riser's base," Akeno informed him as she took flight towards the gym to unleash hell. "Understood, Vice President," Kiba said as he took cover behind a tree to see what would happen. After a few minutes, he heard voices that he knew was the enemy. Walking through the forest were Riser's 3 pawns. 2 were dressed in a manner similar to Grafia and the remaining one was dressed like an Arabian belly dancer. "That Gremory girl really thinks that she can beat Lord Riser," spoke the busty brown hair maid as she and her companions made their way unknowingly towards Kiba. "Yeah, that virgin heiress thinks that she has what it takes to take our lord out," answered Silver-Head Belly Dancer. As they were walking, they triggered a trap that was set to activate just as they walked to a small clearing in the woods. "Watch out," yelled the silver hair girl as she noticed a sudden flash of red light that formed a Gremory circle. From it, a torrent of magical arrows shoots at the trio as they in a nick of time manage to dodge it. "That was a clever trap, too bad that it was wasted," finally, the final member of the raiding party said. She was also dressed like her brown hair friend, but she had dirty blonde hair that was pulling towards brown. As her words left her mouth, Kiba decided to show himself to the girls. "Hello," he said with a wave of his hand as he started approaching them. "Well, what do we have here? A blonde knight. What are you doing here, knight?" arrogantly said the belly dancer as she and her 2 friends took their battle positions. "My name is Kiba Yuto, Knight of the Lady Rias. And who are you 3 if it isn't a secret?" Kiba introduces himself with a polite bow as he was a gentleman after all. "Well, aren't you a polity knight? Since you are cute, I will tell you," the dirty blonde told him in a sweet tone as she pointed at her 2 friends. "The girl that looks like a French maid is Burnt and the girls that look like an Arabic belly dancer is Sharia. My name is Marion. We are the pawns of Lord Riser," the girl now known as Marion told him as he nodded his head drawing a sword. "So, shall we start, my ladies?" Kiba politely asked as he took his position, prepared for any sneak attack that the trio may launch. And his preparation proved dividend as Burnt started to shower him with magical attacks. Using his knight speed, he quickly dodged the attacks and started to charge at her only to quickly evade again as Sharia came to close quarter to engage. Using his evading movement, Marion quickly grabbed Kiba from behind and put him in a headlock. "What are you going to do, no Knight of Gremory?" Marion questioned, seeing that he had no chance of winning. At that moment they heard something that surprised them. "Lord Riser's 1 rock and 3 pawns retired," Grafia stated. "That's easy, and I apologize in advance," he said as a large gremmery circular appeared under all of them. "Sword birth!" Kiba shouted as half a dozen swords erupted from the ground, piercing the 3 pawn, making them vanish into thin air. Lord Riser's 3 pawns retired. Grafia announced again. "Well, looks like my work here is done. No to regroup with Kaneko and Issei," Kiba said to himself as he started jogging towards the rendezvous point. His jogging turned into a sprint as moments later he heard a disturbing announcement from Grafia. "Lady Rias 1 rook retired," Grafia announced in her neutral tone. "That's not good, that leaves us with Akeno, Issei and me. And I have a feeling that Akeno is fighting Riser's queen. So Issei is vulnerable. I better hurry," he thought as he picked up even more speed to come to his ally's help. Back in the Orc clubroom, Rias and Rainier were cheering at the news of Issei, Kaneko and Kiba defeating their opponents, but that was short-lived as Grafia announced Kaneko's defeat, probably to Riser's queen. "Well, princess, what are we going to do now?" Rainier questioned, since both knew that Riser had plenty more manpower to throw around while they have 3 members to combat them with, both Rias and her still in the clubroom. "I think it's time for the king to move out. Don't you think, Rainier?" Rias answered with her own question. Rainier just nodded and Rias and she started heading towards Riser through the forest that Kiba made clear for them. Rias knew that confronting Riser with only her bishop was dangerous, but she wanted so badly to finish this fight, and her overconfidence in her power made her make a move that would probably be very costly to them. "Well, princess, let's finish that fried chicken and go home. I need my beauty sleep, you know," Rainier joked to relieve herself from the tension that was building in her as she saw how powerful Riser was. "Yes, let's finish this once and for all. And all of us go home," Rias answered her in a voice full of confidence as she mentally geared herself up. "Just you wait, Riser. I'm coming and I will blow you away," was all that Rias thought as she and her bishop quickly made ground towards his base, ready to finish what she started. I know this is a short chapter and I will try to make the second part a lot longer. Next chapter will be first battle between a phoenix and the dragon. As always, feedback is welcome. If you guys have questions about the story, feel free to PM me and I will answer as best as I can. Issei Peerage. King. Eyes Hyodo Queen. Mutated Piece. Knight. Knight. Bishop. Revel Bishop. Rook. Rook. Elsha, predecessor booster gear, mutated piece, model Elizabeth Mabel from Freezing. Pawn. Chelsea, 6x, pawn. Murayama pawn. Katase, first, previous ch6 of 36 next. 2 and meeting the past host A.N. Well, here is part 2 of the rating game. I know it may be shorter than part 1, but to compensate for that, Issei will meet the previous host of Dragon of Domination. Now I also saw that I made a mistake in the number of pawns, and I thank you all who pointed it out. I fixed that so he now has 3 pawns, Chelsea is worth 6 pawns. Does that think that Eyes is losing his aggression towards Rias and her group? I will tell you now that that isn't the case, since he also hates arranged marriages and he also sees this as an opportunity to get closer to free himself and starting his peerage and becoming the Dragon of Domination. Thanks to Love Ray X for the beta. I don't own High School DxD, that right goes to its creator. Talking, thinking. Diedrich talking, Diedrich thinking. Dragon Shot Attack Name Chapter 7 Rating Game Part 2 and Meeting with a Past Host. As Rias and her bishop Rainier made their through the forest towards Riser's that was cleared by Kiba. Kiba was rushing towards the track field in a hope that he will be on time to help Issei in a case he was attacked. After about a minute or so, Kiba arrived at the field track, only to see Issei barely holding out against his opponents. Quickly Kiba charged towards the members of Riser's peerage and managed to parry the blow from the busty blue-haired girl that wielded a Zweihander before she could strike Issei from behind. The girl was wearing a white shirt that showed her cleavage and red shorts with knee-high boots. Now, striking from behind isn't a knightly way of doing things, Kiba said as he still locked his sword against the blue-haired girl one. I may be a knight, but I don't give a shit about the code of honor, the Blue Knight answered. With one push on both sides, Kiba and Riser's knight backed off and gained some ground, while Issei was finally able to stand with Kiba's little distraction. Thanks for the save, bro, Issei told the knight as he took a few seconds to catch his breath. How did you get into this situation in the first place? The blonde knight asked as he was switching his sword for a new one. When Kaneko was taken, Akeno flew in and ordered me to come here to meet with you so we could continue. But when I arrived I was met with all of them, Issei told him as he gestured his hand at the remaining members of Riser's forces that were led by blonde-haired girl wearing a pink dress. You peasant don't have a chance against us or my brother. Just give up already, the blonde-haired girl said. Ah, you must be Revel Phoenix, younger sister of Riser. Kiba politely said to her, making her puff her chest in pride only to fall face first when Issei spoke the next. Now I know why you look familiar. You are the younger sister of the fried chicken. Why you disrespectable peasant. Girls finish them both, I don't want to dirty my dress. Revel spoke in almighty tone that made both boys holding back the urge not to facepalm. Right away Lady Revel. The members of the peerage shouted before they charged at the boys. Issei, I will take the knights, you take the rook, the pawns and the bishop. Kiba spoke as he heads towards the knights. Issei stood his ground, waiting for the assault and still boosting so he could have a chance against them. After all, he was starting to get exhausted from fighting 2 knights, bishop, rook and 2 pawns for even a minute who made some good hits on him. Come on Diedrich, is there anything else you can help me with? Issei asked in desperation as he started to think that he was fighting a losing fight. There is one thing that you can do now partner, the ancient dragon spoke. And what is that? Issei asked as he dodged the punch to the face from the rook. You just need to get stronger to use another ability of the booster gear. Diedrich answered him that Issei somewhat worried. I don't know what to say to that. Issei spoke as he dodged another punch from the rook only to be locked in place with magic chains that paralyzed him. The pawns started to let loose on him with volleys of punches and kicks. Ah! Issei screams as he was brutally beaten by the trio. It looks like the fabled Red Dragon Emperor is out. Finish him, girls. Revel spoke in an arrogant tone as she turns around to observe her brother's knights were doing. She missed Issei's eyes turning from brown to green as a massive aura erupted from his body blowing all of them away into the distance. As Issei finally stood up his aura started to flare, even more, his anger directed towards the Nobel girl that continued to throw jabs at him. But before Issei could do anything else, they heard a massive explosion that came from the roof. When they look up there were mixed emotions on their faces. Revel and her fellow peerage members were actually smiling knowing that their master has a checkmate, while Issei and Kiba were in shock that their master had done this very stupid and risky move. What came next made them realize that they needed to get to Rias ASAP. Lady Rias Queen retired. Grafia announced. Akeno was defeated and that meant that another one of Riser's heavy hitters is on the way. Though they knew that Akeno didn't leave her without a few scars and bruises and probably exhausted as well. Still, Riser's queen was dangerous for both of them. In the other part of the track field, Issei battled the remaining Riser's pieces whilst Kiba was battling Riser's knights. I must admit, you are pretty good to be able to hold your own against both of us. The blue-haired knight from before spoke as she swings her blade at Kiba. I also must admit that you two are very good swordswoman and I enjoy fighting you. Kiba politely answered as he dodged her swing and parry a sword strike from the other knight. The other knight was light brown hair girl with green eyes and was in an armor that was mixed between European and Japanese. She was wielding a double-handed broadsword. Yes, this is a very good sword fight. I would like to know your name, Knight of Gremory? The broadsword wielder questioned as she again parted her blade with Kiba's. My name is Kiba Yuto, Knight of Gremory. And yours name's ladies? He answered them as he backed off to get some distance between them. My name is Carlamine, Knight of Lord Riser. The light brown girl answered as she gotten into her stance once more. And I'm Cyrus, also the Knight of Lord Riser. The Zweihander wielder told him. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Kiba politely said as he bowed little before taking up his own stance. Now Knights of Riser come at me. With the trio clash in a speed duel. As both knights tried to slash him, Kiba dodged them and tried anything to take advantage of the situation. However, both knights showed to be very good and crafty. He got a good opening on one of the knights, he would almost immediately be put on defense as the other will tried to strike him, which would force him to dodge or block it with his sword. This went on for several minutes, trying to find an opening for using his sacred gear, but he was unable. That's until he heard Issei shouted at him. Returning to Issei, he was starting to get really pissed as he heard Revel's laugh at the announcement that Grafia made. At that moment Issei's sacred gear started to glow bright red before it changes its shape, all the while Diedrig's voice was heard. Booster gear. Second liberation. Instead of a simple gauntlet that had a green jewel and 2 golden spikes in its place was now a more dragon-like gauntlet that went from his hand all the way to his elbow. It gained another jewel and instead of 2 golden spikes, it had 10. Partner, congratulations, your emotion helped you get that little bit of power needed to unlock next level of booster gear. You also unlocked a new ability of gear. Use it with the blonde knight if you want to save your master. Diedrich informed him as he nodded and looked towards Kiba. Kiba, use your sword bird on me now. Issei shouted to the knight, making him look at him in shock before nodding. Alright Issei, here it comes. Sword birth. As soon as Kiba slammed his blade into the ground, it sent a massive energy blast towards Issei, who waited for it to get near him before doing what Diedrich said to him mentally. Just as it was about to hit him, Issei slammed his armored arm into the ground as the blast begun to be poured into the gear. Diedrich, do it no, he yelled, Roger that. Transfer. As soon as those words were spoken by the dragon, the earth begun to shake as hundreds of sword erupted from the ground, catching everyone by surprise. As Ravel and her fellow pieces started to evade, they were eventually skewed by half of the dozen sword of all shapes and sizes. They all glowed before disappearing. The only one who survived that assault was Ravel, thanks to her regeneration and her quick maneuvering. Lord Reiser's bishop, 2 knights, 2 pawns retired, huh? Issei said, confused as he was sure that they got all of them. Well done Issei, look out. Kiba started to congratulate him, only to push him to the side as an explosion erupted near their spot and the dust obstructed the area. As the dust settled, Issei saw Kiba on the ground with his clothes tattered and ruined. Kiba, are you okay? The Red Dragon Emperor rushed to his comrade only to see him glow. I will be fine Issei, just defeat Reiser, he weakly said to Issei as he disappeared in a glow. Lady Rias knight retired. Both Lord Reiser and Lady Rias have 2 pieces remaining. The announcement was made. Oofoof, it looks like Queen takes both Queen and a knight. The voice was heard as Issei jerked his head to the direction of the voice to see Ubeluna flying a little bit away with a good chunk of bruises and cust. No doubt it was from Akano, as she didn't fell down without a good fight. As much as I would love to defeat you, little pawn, I must go to my master, he is expecting you. Please hurry. Ubeluna told him as she headed to the roof where Rias and Rainier are fighting Reiser. Might as well get this over with, Issei muttered as he walked towards Reiser's base. Lady Rias' pawn is available to promote. Promotion Queen, Issei shouted, feeling more powerful as his piece changed. Partner, you do know that, in your state, you have little to no chance of beating him in your current condition, right? Diedrich asked his host, as he knew that even though he had the power, he was exhausted from the constant battle and the beating he got on the track field. Yeah, I know that Diedrich, but I still have to try, he responded tiredly. As he was half running to the roof, he was met face to face with the blonde bishop. Peasant, why don't you just retire and finish your suffering? Both of us know that this is over. Ravel spoke as he just looked at her. I came all this way, might as well see it to the end. And for your information, I have a name, it's Issei, he answered as he just walked past her and towards the roof. Idiot, the blonde thought as she just casually walked towards the exit of their base, already knowing how this is going to end up. It took Issei a minute to come to the roof. When he came, he was not surprised. Reiser looked as fresh as if he just woke up from a good night's sleep. Rias, on the other hand, looked tired and sweaty. Rainier was the same as her king. Take this, Reiser. Rias shouted as she launched another ball of destruction at Reiser, only to calmly take the blast to the head without even flinching. Is that the best you've got, Rias? If it is, you might as well forfeit now, Reiser said calmly as the part where he was hit regenerated instantly. Never. Lord Reiser, it looks like the Red Dragon Emperor has arrived, Ubeluna told him, as he turned to look at Issei. Ah, so peasant has come. It looks like Ravel failed to defeat you. No matter, Reiser will do it. Yeah, I came, you stupid fried chicken, Issei answered him in an exhausted voice. Why you disrespecting nobody? He snarled as he sent a ball of fire at him, only for Issei to retaliate with his own attack. Dragon shot. The attacks hit each other as they fought for supremacy. It didn't take long for Issei's attack to go through and hit Reiser as he calmly took it. Not bad, but this is over. If you had a few months of training, that attack would hurt like a bitch. But fortunately for me, you didn't. Reiser spoke as he was impressed that even tired and beaten to shit Issei could still outpower his attack, thought moderate attack but nevertheless still powerful. He vanished only to appear in front of Issei as he landed a fist in his gut, then in the face. Issei tried to retaliate but was failing miserably, not having any more stamina to battle the phoenix in front of him. As Reiser continued to hit him, Issei tried to get a shot on him with his dragon shoot, but Reiser was quicker and stopped any attempt. As the one-sided fight went on, Rias nor Rainier could help Issei as they were in danger that Riser's queen could attack them the moment they made a move, which would be a disaster. And there was also Ravel who could defeat them alone with little trouble as she was also fresh and they were not. Riser took this opportunity to punish Issei for his bad-mouthing him and insulting him, a being of noble birth. After 5 minutes of brutality, Riser stopped to look at Rias and see her eyes were full of tears, which gave him an idea how to finish this quickly. Lifting Issei's almost unconscious body, he created a massive fireball. Rias, this is your final warning. Forfeit or Riser will burn him to a crisp. Seeing no way out and not wanting to lose Issei, Rias surrendered to her faith. Fine, you win. Just don't hurt my pawn anymore, Riser. I surrender. Rias weakly said, her tears freely flowing, not being able to hold them back. Lady Rias surrendered, the match goes to Lord Riser. Grafia stated as all of them were transported towards the hospital wing. Upon arriving at the hospital wing, Rias at once rushed over to Issei and hugged him tight and started crying. What kind of a king she was when she was nearly willing to sacrifice him. Just for another minute or two of fighting a losing battle. Riser was way beyond her level and now she knew she could never forgive herself if she let Issei die. Rias, the wedding will be in 3 days. I will see you then, my lovely wife. Riser stated. He and the rest of his peerage that were healed teleported away. The moment earlier Issei passed out was before he heard that Rias had surrendered. As his wounds were treated and he was teleported back to his room. In his mind, Issei was awakened by Diedrich, who was looking down towards his partner laying down on his back to the ground, his head on the lap of the beautiful girl who had a long, curly blonde hair that extends all the way down her back and dark blue eyes. She was wearing a red dress with golden accessories that showed her remarkably large breasts. The first thing that Issei saw when he opened his eyes were 2 dark blue eyes staring at him with a large smile on her face that made Issei wonder as she was an angel. Partner, it's good to see you wake up after that fight. Diedrich told him as Issei turned his head to see his partner in his full glory. That immediately told him that he was in his mind, where the red dragon could manifest his form. Now Diedrich, let him rest a little more like this. I'm enjoying seeing his face like this. The blonde said as she started stroking his head gently. Diedrich, am I in my mind? What happened in the match? Who won? Issei worriedly asked before noticing that his head was on the blonde's lap, and who are you? The girl looked at the ancient dragon waiting for him to answer the boy's questions before she introduces herself to him. To answer your questions, partner. Yes, you are now in your mind. Your king surrendered the match because that phoenix threatened to burn you. If she doesn't throw the match. But even so, you put a good fight out there. I'm pleased how far you have gotten. Diedrich answered him honestly. He had gotten a good fight. Even if his host lost, it was a very good fight that showed the Red Dragon Emperor what could he expect from his host. When Issei heard the news, he just started to shake in anger at the thought of Riser burning him alive. He swore that he will get his revenge on him someday, but at the same time, he was surprised that Rias did what she did. He knew that she was selfish, a spoiled little princess that got everything handed to her on the silver plate. So maybe letting her be with Riser was a blessing in disguise. But then he remembered that there was another person here and that his head was on her lap. Returning his sight on the blonde hair girl, to him even more beautiful than Rias, Akano and Rainier. He saw that she had a warm and soft smile on her face. Her dark blue eyes shined in excitement. He blushed at seeing her. Well, looks like you finally decided to turn your attention to me. The blonde girl spoke in a soft and gentle voice. Why, yes. May I know who you are? He stuttered, blushing as he was mesmerized by her beauty. Of course. My name is Elsha. Former booster gear user and the champion of both Norse and Slavic pantheons. Elsha replied with a warm smile on her face. Nice to meet you, Elsha. My name is Issei Hyodo, but you can also call me Eyes. Issei said with a blush on his face as he stood and bowed to, where she then gave him a little cute pout but later giggle. Ufufu, I liked it more when your head was on my lap, but no later. It's nice to meet you finally. I heard from Diedrich a lot of things about you. Elsha spoke as she also stood up, giving Issei a good look at her. His face went crimson red at seeing her. To say that she was like a goddess on earth would be an understatement. Partner, Elsha here is the strongest female user of the gear, and the second strongest to wield it. Diedrich informed him as his eyes widened in shock that the person in front of him was that strong. Oofoof. Yes, that's right, Eyes, they called me North Red Dragon, she told him with a smile. Issei was stunned. Before him stood one of the strongest users of the gear he now had. Her presence alone had placed an incredible amount of pressure on him. He was sure that she was suppressing her power a lot. "Wow, that's cool. But I have a question," he said in awe. "Was it because of me that you have an affinity to Norse and Slavic magic?" "Why yes, how did you know that I was going to ask that?" "It's simple, eyes. Since I slowly started to awaken, some of my powers were reaching you. That in turn, helped you improve a little at magic. But from what Diedrich told me, you are still suffering in that department. So I will help you train you so that you could be a good magician also," she said with a warm smile on her face, seeing Issei's face turn from shocked into excited in a moment. "Really, you are going to train me?" he said with excitement, barely containing his joy at getting to train with one of the most powerful people. Yes, I am. And Diedrich is also going to train you with that you could get stronger," she replied. Issei was so filled with joy that he started jumping in excitement. "That's right, partner, you have now enough strength for us to continue our training. And with Elsha's help, you will be strong enough to beat that Dame Phoenix," Diedrich told him in a voice that was full of power and bloodlust. Issei shivered at the voice that his partner used. He still remembered when Diedrich trains him, and it was worse than if he was going to beat the fried chicken and get himself free. He needed to endure it. "Don't worry, eyes, I'm pretty good in healing magic as well as the others. Whatever damage you take I can heal it. Though even if you are badly injured, here it won't affect your body in the real world," Elsha told him, seeing him going a little white at what the dragon told him. She knew how fierce Diedrich took the training and combat, so she wasn't that surprised at his reaction. That seemed to do a trick as Issei calmed down a little bit. "Thank you, Elsha." He blushed and thanked her sincerely. "Oofufu, it's no problem, eyes." She giggled at him, seeing that he turned completely red. "Partner, it's time for you to awaken in the real world. What I've heard is that the wedding is going to be in 3 days. When you go to sleep we will then train. With Elsha's help you will get stronger in no time," Diedrich informed him as Issei just nodded and closed his eyes again. "Talk to you guys when I wake up." During the talk between the Red Dragon Emperor, Elsha and Issei in his dream, in the real world, Issei was lying down in his bed with Graphius sitting on his computer chair watching him rest. "Rest as much as you can, Issei. What Rias did to you is something that even her brother wouldn't do. I know what you want, and I know you will manage to beat Riser, and hopefully you can free and save my sister from herself," Graphius sadly thought as she still remembered her little sister. A.N. Well, that wraps up the rating game and introduction of Elsha, the second strongest Red Dragon Emperor, Empress. Next chapter will be what happened between Kendo Duo and Chelsea during Issei's training and game. See you next time. Issei Peerage, King, Eyes Hyodo. Queen. Mutated Piece, Knight. Knight. Bishop, Revel. Bishop. Rook. Rook. Elsha, predecessor booster gear, mutated piece. Model Elizabeth Mabel from Freezing. Pawn. Chelsea, 6x, Pawn. Murayama Pawn. Katase Discord, GGK2XSQ. First, previous CH7 of 36 Chapter 8. Girls Talk A.N. Hello guys. Now before we start this chapter I would like to explain a few things. 1. It's about Elsha. Since like most of you pointed out, yes, she is more powerful than Issei. But as the story goes on he would eventually get stronger than her. In lane Issei is the strongest host of the booster gear. So all of you who said or thought about her being too strong for him, be patient, he will be stronger than her. 2. About his mutated bishop piece. Though now that I think about it, I will change her piece to rook, because I have someone new at bishop's place that would fill it better. So from now on, she would be his future rook. And don't forget that since he would save Rias at least couple of time, he would gain favors from her brother which he could use to gain a mutated rook, from this chapter onwards, as his payment. 3. Also to note, the evil pieces can reincarnate the spirits of sacred gear if they manifest themselves. Now that this is out of the way, let's get started with this chapter. I don't own High School DxD, all rights goes to its creator. Talking, thinking, flashback. Chapter 8. Girls Talk. While Issei was busy with his training for the raiding game with Rias and her gang, the Kendo Duo was also busy training in their swordplay and study in school. Thought they would also from time to time talk about how they would train Issei in suppressing his pervert nature to a more tolerable level. This pattern was going on for a few days as the girls waited for Issei's return. But that all changed one day. XXX. As the girls were walking towards their home from school, they were met with a sight of a very familiar auburn-haired girl that they meet at Issei's place. Chelsea was on the bridge looking into the distance when she felt two people approaching her. Turning around, she found the kendo duo walking towards her. While one was looking at her in surprise, the other was glaring at her, which she had a good idea why she was acting that way, which made her smirk. Just seeing her made Murayama immediately glare at auburn hair girl. She still hated Chelsea for trying to steal her Issei from her. And seeing her here alone and with no one on the site made a perfect opportunity to get to bottom of this. Well, what are you doing here, Chelsea? Issei isn't here if you are looking for him. Murayama spoke first, her voice was cold and emotionless. I already know that my darling is on a training trip and that he will come back in a day or two. I talked to him before he left, so I already know what's happening. Chelsea dismisses it with a wave of her hand. Why, you talked to him? When? Katase asked in a shocked voice. She along with Murayama didn't expect that from the girl in front of them. Oh, that? Well, I think it wasn't on a day when he left for a training trip. Chelsea nonchalantly told them with a smirk as she saw Murayama going red with anger and jealousy. And why Issei didn't tell us that? Murayama asked her as her eyebrows twitched. Maybe he didn't tell you because you are an annoying little girl. Chelsea said with her smirk widening as she saw Murayama's face being even redder as she grabbed her kendo sword and took up her battle stance. Ha ha ha. You really think you can beat me? Even Issei will need at least 4 to 5 boosts to get to my level of power. What makes you think that you have a chance? Chelsea laughed at seeing her attempt to intimidate her. Murayama was now beyond pissed. She was really close to attacking the girl in front of her and chopping her head off. Maybe I'm not stronger than you, little flat-chest girly. But I can still at least chop your limbs, you piece of shit. Oh, now I remembered your strength is in stealth, but in one-on-one you are weakling. Murayama mocked her, and from the look on Chelsea's face her little jab worked as Chelsea faced her, fully getting into her own stance. You will pay for that insult, you slut. Chelsea told her in a low, cold tone that sent shivers down the duo's spine. At that moment Katase decided to intervene so there won't be any blood lost or limbs lost in the battle that would happen soon. Wait. Don't fight each other. Think about what Issei would say about you two fighting. Katase shouted as she runs and stood in between the two with her hands stretched towards them to keep them away from each other. That did the trick as both of them a few times before they went red at the thought of Issei scolding them for being so immature and stupid. What do you both say? That we go somewhere we can talk this out? Without killing each other in the process? Katase asked in a calm voice at seeing the two girls still red from anger and embarrassed. The duo just nodded and they followed the pink-haired girl as she started walking toward the nearby cafe in total silence. XXX. As they were sat in the cafe with their drinks on the table, Katase decided to begin the conversation and break the awkward silence that followed them from the bridge accident. So, what are you doing here, Chelsea? Katase finally said in a soft voice. Chelsea hummed for a moment before sighing sadly and answering her in a tender voice. Honestly, I don't want to be anywhere near my faction since their goals have become messed up so much that sickens me. I would love to stay here near Issei than be there with my faction. What happened to them to change their goals? This time Murayama asked. Her previous aggression disappeared as she looked into Chelsea's sad face. Chelsea sighed again. What happened is not important, what is what I would do from now on. Since I'm pretty sure that they won't give me up that easy in Issei since he is a Red Dragon Emperor. Both Katase and Murayama ask in surprise. What I mean by that is, if they can't have us alive then they are going to try and kill us. Now let's say they can't get to us, they will target you two and his parents to get to us. Chelsea elaborated, making the two kendo girls turn white. Why would they do that? Katase questioned, fearing for her life now. That's simple. Because the power that Issei has is very sought after. It has a potential to kill God and Mao in the right hands. Chelsea answered in a tired voice, clearly not really wanting to talk about it. Seeing that they wanted to say something to her, she raised her hand to stop them. I will tell you about them at a later date, I promise. When both girls nodded, she smiled gratefully at them before it turned into a mischief one. She shot a teasing grin towards the brunette and pink hair girls, which made them uneasy. Though I'm interested. I know that both of you hate perverts, so how is it possible for both of you to have feelings towards one of the biggest perverts in the school? Chelsea asked, loving the fact that she now had a full rein to tease the girls without Issei here to stop her. That question made both Katase and Murayama turn as red as Issei's gauntlet. What are you talking about? Murayama stuttered a little, her face becoming redder even more. Why, yeah, we don't have feelings for him. Katase spoke with a cough into her fist. but her face was changing to the color of her hair, making Chelsea think that if it goes even a little bit more she would have to think that her face was covered by her pink hair. Yeah right, I saw how Murayama acted the first time we meet and then at the bridge. So you can spare me with that bullshit. Now do tell, I love a good romantic story. Chelsea spoke as she leaned forward to better listen to what the two girls had to say. The two girls looked at each other for a moment, conversing mentally on how to go about this before they nodded and turned to still leaning forward Chelsea. Fine, we will tell you, but if you tell anyone else and especially Issei about this I'm really going to chop your head off. Murayama told her in a low voice that promised pain. You have my word on that, girlfriend. My lips are sealed. Chelsea spoke as she made a motion to show that her lips are sealed. Ah. Where to begin? Murayama mumbled before she snapped her fingers. Yes, that could work. Fine Chelsea, here is how it began for me. Flashback. A 13-year-old Murayama was walking down the halls of the Kuo Middle School going to her first class of the year. As she was about to enter her classroom she heard a male shout in the background which prompted her to turn around and see who shouted. The moment she turned around was the moment that the boy collided with her, sending both of them on the floor. Crash asterisk. As they found themselves on the floor, Murayama looked up to see who was her assailant, only for her to blush at seeing a brunette boy her age on top of her, his face buried into her still developing chest. She blushed, even more, when he groaned into her chest as he slowly started lifting his head to show her who he was. As he lifted his face Murayama's heart stopped for a moment as she saw him. His short light brown hair, light brown eyes, good looks and above average body. All of that was making her face even redder. It was like a dream come true for her. He looked perfect in her eyes. Sorry about that. I was late for class so I sprinted towards it and couldn't stop in time. He apologized as he stood up and gave her a hand to help her up. And no, it's fine. I wasn't quick enough to move away. Murayama told him shyly as her face was still red. Sweet. Thought, what's your name? From the looks of things we are in the same class. The brown hair boy exclaimed as he saw that both him and the brown hair girl were going to the same classroom. Murayama was in heaven when she heard that both of them were in the same class. She wondered if he was single since she wouldn't mind being with him. My name is Murayama Yamazaki. And yours? She shyly answered his question before asking for his name. The brown boy smiled softly at her, making her knees a little weak at his charming smile that took her breath away. My name is Issei Hyodo, it's nice to meet you, Murayama. He politely said as he bowed a little. And nice to meet you to Issei Hyodo, she replied with a little bow of her own. But before any one of them could say anything more the bell was heard prompting the duo to enter the class. From that encounter with him, Murayama was starting to fall for Issei, and from that day she would slowly start to love him. As the time in middle school passed away, Murayama started to notice that Issei was turning to be a big pervert that was more into woman body than anything else day by day, but he still kept being polite and helpful to everyone in need. He was also gentle towards her and tried everything to make her not hate. In her opinion, it was impossible for her to hate him even when he started peeping at her. She was flattered that he did it, and even when she catches him and beats him up she did it with absolute minimum strength. Murayama didn't mind very much that Issei peeped if it was her. Sure, she hated when other perverts peep on her, but if the one that took her heart did it she was fine. While Murayama didn't mind him being a pervert, the bad reputation he has gotten was something she didn't like that much. So slowly she started to ignore him in the hopes that he will understand that he needed to change his ways. But unfortunately for her, her crush begun to become even worse, which left her almost emotionally destroyed. What happened to you, Issei? What made you become this way? Murayama sadly thought as she was slowly destroying herself from inside out. She did have feeling for Issei but didn't have the courage to tell him, and she thought that cost her Issei's perverted side to show up. So when she met Katei Saito she was relieved that she was almost the same as her. She also hated perverts, and while Murayama still wouldn't hit Issei hard, Katei had no such restraint as she hit him as hard as she can. Flashback end. As Murayama told them both about her past with Issei, she was almost in tears at seeing the one she loves in such state, and she knew that if she confronted him and told him about it maybe she could have stopped it. And that's what happened between us. Yes, he was a pervert even back then, but anything I asked him to do he would have done it without a second guess. Murayama told them with watery eyes. Wow, I knew that he was a nice person but that he would do anything for you. Chelsea spoke a little shocked at the revelation. Yeah, he really was nice to me. And I still think that if I asked him for anything he will do it for me. But after what he told us. Murayama wanted to say it but couldn't, so Kataise finished her sentence. About what happened at his last date made him fragile and Kataise finished it in a sad tone. What happened on his last date? Chelsea asked, dreading the answer that she might get. W was murdered by Rainier, the girl that is now Rias Bishop. Murayama answered, not having any restraint, as she started to sob with her tears freely flowing down her cheeks. He was what? Chelsea asked in pure shock as her face went white. You didn't know about that? Kataise questioned in surprise. And no, I didn't know that since I arrived about a month and a half ago. And from what I managed to gather, he was a devil for 2 months, so I didn't know. If I did, I would have killed that fallen bitch. Chelsea told the both of them while her fist went white with rage. Yeah, that what we learned from him, and I know he is afraid of us, not so much from beating he got from us, but from Rainier, who used his good side. Kataise sadly spoke, as she also knew that even thought Issei was a colossal pervert, that after talking with Murayama about him and seeing for herself that he still respected and cared those that were close to him, made her change her opinion of him. Though she would never tell him that out loud, she was starting to see past his perverted nature and dedication. Action toward those he treasured was something that she admired. After that, all 3 girls went silent, thinking about their love interest. And little did they know they were all attracted toward him by his kindness and his honesty. What all 3 didn't know, it was also his dragon aura that made them go to him. They were attracted towards him like flies towards the light. As they were all in their little world, all of them began to remember their moments with him where they found it cute and funny. Kataise flashback. Get back here, you perverts. Kataise along with Murayama yelled as she and members of Kendo Club were giving chase to 3 boys who were running for their lives. Hell no. The bald boy answered as he was in front of his group. Come on, Matsuda. We can't outrun them. Kataise. And Murayama will catch us. The boy with glasses told Matsuda as he was starting to lose his breath and slightly slow down. Come on guys, we need to get on Motohama, I got you. The brown-haired boy said as he took his friend by the arm and started to pull him to go faster. Yeah, Issei is right, we need to hurry. Let's make a distraction. Matsuda said with an evil glint in his eyes that did get unseen by Issei but didn't go unseen by Motohama, who also had an evil glint in his eyes. Matsuda is right. Motohama said as he forcefully stopped, making Issei fall on his back as Motohama sprinted away. Sorry man, but you have to take on for the team. When Issei finally stood up, he found himself surrounded by the Kendo Club. But before he could get beaten to shit, 2 voices intervened. You girls, go and get the other 2. Murayama spoke as she pointed her shinai towards Issei, who gulped. We will take care of him. Kataise said as she followed Murayama's suit and pointed her shinai at Issei. Yes, captains. The girls answered before running up to give the other 2 boys their punishment. With the girls gone, the duo captains turned their attention towards the brunette, who paled at seeing them getting closer to him. Now Issei, I promise you that this isn't going to hurt us at all. You, on the other hand, will hurt. A lot. Kataise stated before both girls started to beat Issei. Flashback end. Kataise giggled a little bit before she remembered and flinched a little, because that was the time when Murayama also beat her down when she hid Issei in the family treasure. That was the first time that Murayama took her anger and frustration on her instead on the perverts. And Kataise made vow to never temper Murayama in fear of what she would do to her if she hurt Issei that way. That thought brought her out of her daydreaming as she remembered that there was also one more person with them, and from all affection that person gave Issei, it was clear to her that she also had feelings for him. Chelsea, you also have feelings for eyes? Kataise suddenly asked, making both Murayama and Chelsea blink from a sudden question. What are you talking about? Chelsea nervously asked as she stole a quick glance towards Murayama, who narrowed her eyes at her, making Chelsea gulp. I asked, do you have any fi? Kataise began to repeat her question before Chelsea stopped her. I heard you the first time, she quickly said before for taking a deep breath. Yeah, I do have feelings for him, Chelsea confessed as she saw Murayama and Kataise's fist go white. So you do have? Murayama asked, her tone low. Yes, I do have feelings for him, but I started to have them towards him a little before we all started interacting. Hearing the silence from the 2, Chelsea decided to continue. Well, it all started when I first saw him, Chelsea told them as she started to tell them. Flashback. Ah, come on. Where am I going to find the Red Dragon Emperor? Chelsea muttered as she was making her way through the streets of Kuo. It was as luck would have it that Issei was running toward the abandoned church with Kiba and Kaneko. Chelsea couldn't believe her moment she was whining about were to found the emperor only for him to run past her with two others. Well, that was easy. Thought why are they running towards the church? Chelsea thought as she was wondering why they would go there. Deciding to follow them she caught the sight of two more devils fighting three fallen angels. From the looks of things, it looks like devils launched a surprise attack on them. What are the fallen doing here in the devil's territory in the first place? Chelsea asked herself that as she continued to watch the two devil girls fight the fallen. It didn't take long for the devils to overpower the fallen as the red-hair girl shot her magic completely obliterating the opponents she was facing. Akeno, let's go see how Issei did on his end. The red-hair girl told her companion as they started walking towards the back entrance of the church. Yes, President. Akeno answered as she followed her in. Seeing this, Chelsea masked her presence and activated her sacred gear and transformed into a crow and took off with them. As they entered, Chelsea felt strong dominated aura coming from somewhere, making her stop her pursuit of the devil girls. What's this powerful aura I'm sensing? Chelsea thought as she thought whoever was there he had to be extremely powerful that even her sacred gear won't be able to help her. That's when she heard a powerful roar accompanied by the whole church shaking. I said is that UNDERSTOOOOOD? T that aura. T that's the Red Dragon Emperors. Whoever pissed him off better hope that he doesn't enter Juggernaut Drive or we all are good as dead. Chelsea was lost and afraid for her life. She heard how powerful Juggernaut Drive is and what it's capable and the thought alone made her go white. Luckily the extremely powerful aura that flooded everywhere was slowly vanishing while Chelsea could still feel that after effect of it. She felt herself getting dominated and for some strange feeling she liked it and wanted it even more, so she decided to wait until all the devils left so she could get a better look on the emperor. It didn't take long for the devils to leave, leaving only Issei in the church. When she made her way she saw him holding onto the blonde-haired girl with tears in his eyes. That was something that greatly surprised Chelsea. She learned and was told that the dragon emperors were cruel, battle-hungry and merciless without even a slight feeling of remorse or pity. But seeing the great red dragon like this made her realize that what she learned and was told were very far from the truth. That sparked her interest in him even more and she decided to figure out who he really was and what made him click. Flashback end. You could say that from that day forward, my interest in him increased a lot, even to the point that I don't know what to think. Chelsea told them, as the girls looked at her a little shocked at what they heard about Issei and her little confession. Silence settled between the three girls as all three of them were absorbing what the other two said. Wow, it takes a lot to piss Issei off, that's for sure. Murayama voiced her thoughts to break the silence between them. Yeah, I mean we beat him down so many times and yet he didn't even snap once at us. Though truth be told, we didn't do anything that cruel to him as letting him die. Katase agreed with her brunette friend as she understood that it was extremely hard to make Issei angry. Chelsea nodded her head, also knowing that to be the truth. She intruded into his house and although he did show hostilities he didn't go and attack her on the spot because of that. Now though, do you girls have any ideas how to make eyes less perverted? He did ask us to help him after all. Katase voiced a valid question. Chelsea hearing that got a teasing smirk on her face that got the attention of the other girls. Oh, I know a perfect way how to decrease his perverted nature. Please do tell, we are all ears. Katase said, also starting to have a smirk on her face. Well, hee. I think we should provoke him, and when we see that he starts to go into his pervert mode we punish him. And also give him some physical training also. Chelsea said with a smirk. She is going to enjoy sucking Aiza's life dry. Katase and Murayama looked at each other and nodded. It wasn't the best plan but it was better than nothing. Sure, you got yourself a deal. When Issei returns we are going to begin training him. Murayama told Chelsea, whose smirk turned even bigger. And I know the perfect places to begin it. The swimming pool, that way we can enjoy ourselves and punish Aiza at the same time. Katase said in mischief voice. Now that sound like a plan I would gladly follow. Plus to make it more interesting let's make a bikini competition between the three of us to see who is better in Issei's eyes. Chelsea added with a grin at seeing the other two girls turn red. With their little plan for Issei all set, the girls changed subject to some other things as they continued to get to know each other and become friends. N. Hope you liked this little girl talk that hopefully explained a little why Murayama and Katase have a crush on Issei. Next chapter it's time for the final showdown between the dragon and Phoenix, also with a little twist. Issei Peerage. King. Eyes Hyodo Queen, mutated piece. Knight. Knight. Bishop. Revel Bishop. Rook. Rook. Elsha, predecessor booster gear, mutated piece, model Elizabeth Mabel from freezing. Pawn. Chelsea, 6x, pawn. Murayama pawn. Katase, first, previous ch8 of 36 next. Chapter 9. Rematch Dragon vs Phoenix A, N. Hello and welcome to Chapter 9 of Road of Domination. This chapter, like said in the last one, is going to be a rematch between Issei and Risser, though there would be a few flashbacks before it. I hope you enjoy it. Normal talk, thinking. Elsha talking in his mind. Diedrich, I don't own DXD, all rights go to creator. Rematch Dragon vs Phoenix. It's been a few hours after the game between the houses of Gremory and Phoenix. While mostly everyone in the Gremory peerage was healed and rested, only the pawn of the peerage was still unconscious after the beating he has gotten from Risser. With their ace in the hole in bed sleeping, the peerage decided to start preparing for the hated marriage party that they had to attend. Do you think Issei will be alright? Akeno asked as she entered Issei's room to bring some food for Grafia, who was patiently sitting in one of the chairs in the room. Yes, you don't need to be worried about him, Akeno. He will be alright. He did take some serious damage and exhausted himself from the fight. Thank you for the food. Grafia replied as she gracefully took the food and thanked the Queen of Rias for it. It's no problem, Grafia. Thank you for keeping an eye on him. We appreciate it. Akeno spoke as she bowed to the strongest queen and exited the room, leaving both Issei and Grafia alone. As Grafia continued to watch over Issei while eating the food she got from Rias Queen, she couldn't help but remembered what she was told by her sister-in-law about the Red Dragon Emperor. She trusted Rias, but the way she acquired him didn't make sense to her. It was as it was all set up too perfectly to be the truth, and she was worried that what might have happened was the worst case.
Flashback. As Rias was reading over some papers related to the devil business, she suddenly felt a magic circle forming in her clubroom. Seeing it belonged to her clan, she expected it to be from either her brother or his wife. Which moments later showed that she was right, as the latter appeared through it wearing her normal maid outfit.
Grafia, it's nice to see you. How are you been doing? Rias asked, not showing her uncomfortableness that she felt at seeing her. Rias, it's also nice seeing you. I'm good, though I'm here on the orders from your brother to tell you that you have less than 2 months to prepare for Risser. He started to pressure for the marriage. Grafia explained, seeing Rias flinch and starting to get angry at the message. I thought that I still had time till that cursed marriage. Rias shouted to no one in particular as she was getting even angrier at the thought of her and Risser. Yes, you did, but Risser along with the elders are pushing this. Well, I do have someone in my peerage that will force Risser into the rating game and Risser will lose to him, Rias confidently said to the maid. And who do you have that can beat him? Maid asked, not knowing who in the Rias peerage was strong enough to beat Risser. That's easy, I have found Red Dragon Emperor, and he is now my servant, Rias told her in the voice full of pride and confidence. Grafia, hearing that Rias has acquired the legendary beast, had her eyes wide for a second before she got her shock under wraps. Though, that begged the question on how she was able to convince the heavenly dragon to become her servant. It was common knowledge that dragons loved their freedom. And how did you manage to get him to become your servant? Grafia questioned her sister-in-law. Rias clearly didn't expect Grafia to question it. Sweating a little bit, Rias quickly lied in a convincing voice. When I found him in school, I approached him and asked him to come to my clubroom. After that, I explained to him that I could sense a great power within him and that he would be approached by other supernatural beings and that he would be in danger. After he understood it, I convinced him to join my peerage, which he accepted. And from then on, it's all history. Rias quickly lied to her, hoping that Grafia will buy it. Grafia for her part just nodded, but it was something about what Rias said that made her suspicious. She knew that Rias was like a mother to her peerage, but she also knows too well that Rias was too prideful to go out of her way to warn some human being, even if it had a powerful aura around him. She could only hope that she didn't do anything stupid to the Red Dragon Emperor, because that would be catastrophic. But for now, she would accept her words. With all said and done, Grafia excused herself and left, leaving Rias to sigh in relief at the close bullet that she dodged. Flashback end. As Grafia was eating her food, she suddenly heard a grunting sound coming from Issei's bed. Lifting her head a little, Grafia saw Issei sitting up and looking around a little confused. I see that you have awoken, Issei, that's good. Grafia told him, making him turn his head around to look at her. Where am I? was all Issei could say as he was still confused about his surroundings. "You are in your room, Issei. I brought you here after your injuries were healed at the infirmary." Grafia answered him as he looked around his room before returning his gaze at the maid. "I see, so what happens now? Diedrich told me that Rias surrendered to that bastard." Issei spoke, his voice full of hatred. "I was assigned to give you this pamphlet when you woke up, so you could get to the party." Grafia spoke as she handed him a pamphlet with the Grimoire's magic circular. What do you need of me, Grafia?" Issei asked as he took the paper from the maid. "I'm here more as a messenger, Issei. My master said to tell you this: if you wish to free my sister, crash the party." Those were his words, Issei. "The party is in 3 days." Grafia told him as she prepared a circle to go, but was stopped when she heard Issei say something that made her widen her eyes. "Hell no, I'm not going to help that murderous bitch that let me die for her own gain." Issei mumbled to himself, but to Grafia it was loud and clear. Turning around, Grafia looked at Issei, who was still holding the paper she gave him. However, his eyes were full of hatred, and if you looked closely you would have seen his eyes turning from his brown to Diedrig's green. She felt pity for the boy as she remembered that her own sister was in serious trouble that might end up terrible for her. So she decided to stay a little longer and see why he said what he said. "Issei, what do you mean about letting you die?" she softly asked him, making him flinch a little at that since he forgotten that Grafia was still here. Issei looked up from the pamphlet he was given with a sigh and gestured for Grafia to take a sit, which she did as he started to explain what he meant. "Did Rias ever tell you that I was Red Dragon Emperor before that night?" Issei asked. Nodding her head, she replayed him. "Yes, 2 months before the raiding game she said that she gained a Red Dragon Emperor as her servant." "And did she mention how she had gained him?" Issei questioned, feeling his blood slightly starting to boil from anger. "She told me that she found you at school and she approached you and asked you to come to the clubroom where she explained everything to you and where you accepted to become her servant." Grafia told him what Rias said to her about him. Issei was at first shocked, then his shock vanished with it being replaced with extreme rage about the lie she used to tell Grafia. His eyes started to turn green as his aura flared out, making his house shake from it alone. Even though Grafia was way stronger than him, she was still in awe at the power that Issei had in him. The moment Issei's aura exploded, she knew that what Rias told her was a lie, and now she knew that she was going to hear the truth and she would like it. It took a few minutes for Issei to calm himself before telling Grafia the truth of how she gained him. "That bitch, I should kill her now," Issei whispered to himself, but was again heard by Grafia. "As much as you want to kill her, you can't, Issei. You would become stray and then be hunt down till you're dead." Grafia told him. She knew that her master and husband would kill Issei in a flash if he hurt her, let alone kill her. "I know that, but still." He sighs heavily before taking a deep breath, calming himself. "Know this, Grafia. What she told you was a complete lie. What she did was letting me get killed by my date and then swooping in and reviving me. If she did what she told you, I would have gladly accepted her offer of becoming a devil. But she didn't go down that path, so you can understand why I'm not going to help her, and I don't give a flying fuck about her. I hope she suffers." Issei explained to her in the shortest version he could. He still had nightmares from that date. Grafia was in complete shock when she heard his story. She now understood why he was completely against helping Rias, and if Sirzex did that to her she would have ripped his head off. Though Issei's next words gave her small hope for both him and her sister. "All I ever wanted was to be loved by someone. I know I'm a huge pervert, but still, what I went through on that day was something I wouldn't wish even my worst enemy, the White Dragon. I swore over my friend's dead body that I will not be manipulated ever again. And I still stand to that. The only reason I fought Riser was so that I would be closer to getting to high class and breaking free from her. And I hate guys like him, even if he was like me not too long ago." Grafia just stood there and listened to him as he let all of his emotions out. Issei was an emotional person, she could see that clearly, so she just stepped closer to him, and before he could do anything she embraced him in a warm hug. "Let it all out, Issei. I can see that you are still hurt from what she did. I know it's hard, but you have to keep going if you ever want to break loose from her." Grafia told him in a soft and warm voice that made Issei cry. He was emotionally in such mess that he needed to tell someone how he felt and let all of it out of his system. Grafia understood this, so she put it on herself to be his support until he was ready to move on. Issei cried in her embrace for nearly 10 minutes before managing to get control over himself. Sorry, Grafia, for seeing me like this, and for ruining your outfit." Issei apologized to the maid as he tried to get himself out of Grafia's grip, but she wouldn't let him. "Issei, What would you do if I told you that there is one person that is in similar pain that you are in? That the person is so emotionally in chaos that it nearly sent her to insanity? Graphia softly asked, still holding tightly to Issei, trying to see what would be his reaction to her question. Issei, hearing that, immediately answered her without thinking. He was that kind of the guy, he would always help anyone in need without question. I would do whatever it takes to help that person. When Graphia heard his reply, causing her to smile at him and tightened her grip on him. Issei, I am going to tell you a story about that person, and I hope that you would truly help her since she desperately needs it. Nodding his head, Graphia released him and motioned for him to sit as she took the chair she was sitting in not too long ago. What I'm about to tell you, Issei, is the story about my little sister and what made her almost go insane. No one knows about it, and I hope you will keep what I tell you to yourself. Graphia told him in a serious tone that made it clear to him that if word about her got out, he would be in unimaginable pain. Issei gulped a little hearing her tone, but he nevertheless nodded, which made Graphia smile again. Well, this all happened during the Devil's Civil War. Flashback. It was moments before the final battle of the war. Both sides were gathering their troops in position for the showdown that would finally end this needless bloodshed and bring peace to the realm of the devils. On one side of the battlefield was the old Satan faction, which was led by descendants of the original Maos, and on the opposing side was the anti-Satan faction led by the strongest devils alive. The location for the battle was none other than the capital of the devils, Lilith. As the battle started, both sides pushed for supremacy in both land and air. The casualties were horrendous, so much so that even the largest battle in human history, the Battle of Kursk, was like a skirmish in comparison. Millions upon millions dead on both sides. During the Battle of Lilith, as it was called, two siblings were fighting against two other people. One of the two that the siblings fought was none other than their older sister Graphia, while the other was a red-haired man that looked to be in his late 20s. Graphia, I didn't know that you could fall so low that you sided with the traitors. Do we mean anything to you, big sis? One of the siblings asked. He was a tall, handsome-looking youth in his early 20s with long silver hair that went to a ponytail and red eyes. He was wearing a silver suit with some accessories. That's not true, Euclid. I realized that if the descendants win, there wouldn't be any of us anymore. They will make the devils go extinct, and that is one thing I don't want, dear brother. Graphia replied as she blocked an attack from the other sibling that was a girl that looked like she was in her late teen year with short silver hair with light purple tone to it and dark blue eyes that were full of rage directed towards her sister for abandoning their cause. That doesn't matter, big sis. Our clan gave full loyalty to Lucifer and his clan. And you side with the enemy of his, that makes you our enemy now. The girl told Graphia as she attacked her again, only for the red hair man to block it. Now, Lucy, I thought that you are smarter than this. The red hair man told the girl. You, Sirzek, shut up. If it wasn't for you, both my brother and I wouldn't have to battle our own sister. Lucy yelled as she started bombarding the duo with all she had in her. All of her rage went into her attacks that consisted of ice and lightning, her most powerful elements. The attack caught both Graphia and Sirzek by surprise. They knew that Lucy was powerful, and to take her down they would need a bit more power than any ordinary high-class devil. They both put their strongest barriers up to block her bombardment as it was going on. Each hit on the barrier made a small crack in it. Thankfully to both members of the anti-Satan faction, the relentless attack stopped before it could break through their defense, while the attack left Lucy exhausted for overusing her magic powers. Quickly using her exhausted state, Sirzek sent his attack at her, hoping to put her out of commission and then battle Euclid without worrying about Lucy. But to both Graphia's and Lucy's shock, Euclid positioned himself in front of Lucy and took the attack head on, which caused a huge explosion to erupt where he stood that sent Lucy flying back a good 20 meters. As the debris was clearing, it left the two girls in horror. Where Euclid stood now was only a 10-meter wide crater with no trace of Euclid to be found, as if he never existed. Seeing that, Graphia started crying as Lucy stood there, shocked to the core. With the loss of her big brother, she was left broken and just surrendered with no will to fight anymore. Flashback end. After that battle, Lucy was imprisoned as a prisoner of war. Though a few months later she was released, but she is still unwilling to do anything, and she is almost always locked in our clan's estate where she rarely leaves it. She is now like a shell, all life left her that day. Graphia finished her story with a sad smile. Issei just listened to the story and was shocked at what he heard. He couldn't even imagine how it must have been for both girls to see their brother get killed in front of them. So Issei just stood up and hugged Graphia tightly, surprising her. Is there any way to help your sister come out of her shell? He softly asked her, making Graphia's eyes widen at his question. I honestly don't know, Issei. I hope there is, she replied. Nodding, Issei just released her and turned around looking at the pamphlet he was still holding. What would you say, Graphia? If I could help your sister, would you help me get free from Rias? He questioned, turning around to look at the maid of the gremmery. The look of determination in his eyes gave her hope that he just might be able to help her. Without hesitation, she nodded with a smile. You have my word that I would support and help you in any way I can. That answer made Issei smile. Then we have a deal, Graphia. I will help Rias to get out of this marriage and will do whatever I can to help Lucy, and you will help me get away from Rias. That is acceptable, Issei Hyodo. Now then, I'll take my leave. Remember, you have only 3 days before the party. Use them well. With that said, Graphia teleported away. When Graphia left, Diedrich and Elsha decided to speak with Issei. That went better than expected. If I would say so myself, Diedrich voiced his opinion on the deal Issei made with the maid. Yes, I'm also surprised at what she told you, Issei. And that she accepted the deal you suggest. Elsha added her 2 cents also. Same here, but from what we heard I wouldn't be surprised at that. I would also seek help for my sibling without a question. As he started to remember what he was told from Graphia. Fair enough. Now though, both Diedrich and I made your training schedule. Elsha told him, making Issei snap back to reality. You did? Yes, we did, partner. The schedule is as such. While awake you will do the following. Run for 10 kilometers with weighted clothes. Then do a series of exercises and final that would help you increase your stamina and physical strength. Diedrich started the training program of thing that Issei would do in the next 3 days. But when you go to sleep, we will pull you into the gear and train you in both magic, fire breath, and combat so you can beat that riser guy. Elsha finished explaining the program that was planned. Well, that does sound good. And I can't wait to start. So let's go. Issei told both his partners in the voice full of excitement and joy. He was close to getting at that bastard who almost killed him. Oh, he could barely contain himself from excitement at the thought of kicking his butt. That's the spirit, partner. We will show those little devils not to mess with us dragons. Diedrich roared with bloodlust as he was like Issei, barely containing himself for some bird hunting. Seeing this, Elsha just sighed to herself. It looked like she would need to be the one to put the two in line. But being a warrior herself, she could understand their view and their excitement for the battle. But for now, she needed to bring both the dragon and the host to their senses. Now as much as I would also like to tear that bird to pieces. We need you eyes to train so you could be as strong as possible before kicking his butt. And Diedrich, I know that you are battle hungry, but could you wait for it at least a few more days? Elsha told them both, bringing them back to reality. Yes, you are right as always, Elsha. Though in my defense I didn't hunt those birds for centuries, so you can understand my bloodlust. Diedrich told her, getting a nod of understanding from the second strongest user of booster gear. Sorry. No problem, you two, but now Issei, go and do what we told you, and when you go to sleep we will train you more. Elsha instructed Issei as he just nodded and run outside to start his training. XXXXXXXXXXX. After the full day of training, Issei was ready to go to sleep. He was surprised to see that no one from Ria's peerage was present all day, not even her. But that only made him feel better, as he was able to train in peace and talk to both Diedrich and Elsha without interference from the annoying Rias. As he laid in bed and started to drift off to sleep, he was immediately pulled into the sacred gear by no other than Elsha and Diedrich. Opening his eyes, Issei saw that he was on a meadow filled with all kinds of vegetation. It looked like heaven, as the nature and aura around it were peaceful and calm. He was brought back to his senses when he heard a giggle coming from his right. Turning around, he was met with the sight that made him start to blush viciously. Leaning against the tree was Elsha. She was wearing a crimson top with V-cut that showed some of her breasts, with a pink skirt and black shoes. Her long blonde hair was tied up into the ponytail. In Issei's eyes, she looked even more prettier than before. Seeing his face made Elsha giggle even more. She was enjoying the look on his face. She knew from Diedrich that he was a massive pervert and that he was trying to suppress it, but getting a reaction from him was priceless to her. Now eyes, I know that you are enjoying the view, but I brought you here to train. Elsha told him with a smirk that only grew when his eyes widened before he quickly turned around, still red. Why, yeah, you did. So what are we going to do? Issei asked in a shy voice, still too embarrassed to look at her. Now my little eyes, you don't have to be embarrassed at all. You are doing well in keeping that side in you. Though if you want to take me on a date, you have to work a bit harder, you know. elsha told him in a sweet voice before winking at him in the end. Why yeah, Issei barely told her as he felt blood dripping from his nose and a little light-headed that the girl like her that surpass any model would say that so easily to him. Giggling a bit, elsha composed herself before becoming serious. Now Issei, first I will show the basics of Norse and Slavic magic. They are known for being really powerful and can be destructive in the right hands, elsha explained as she created a small orb of magical energy that made Issei a little scared. What is that, elsha? He asked, scared as he sensed the power in that small orb. You don't have to worry, Issei. This is only a sample of the magic from both sides. While both are powerful individually combined, they are deadly if you know how to use them, she explained to him in a tender voice with a warm smile that made Issei blush a little bit. So how can I do similar things like you? He asked. Yes, though you will need time, I will start expanding your reserves slowly, she said as she sits on the ground and motioned to Issei to also sit. With him complying of what he was told by elsha, she started expanding his magic reserves and telling him all about magic and how to improve it. XXXXXXX as they were training in magic, Issei found a lot of interesting things about elsha. She told him that she was high-class from birth, born between Russian boyar that served the emperor and the Norwegian Valkyrie. Her great affinity for magic and her understanding of battle tactics and strategy made her great ally to both pantheons. So to prevent the war over her, it was decided by both leaders of the pantheons that elsha would become champion of both Odin and Perun. With that decided, she was constantly trained in both Norse and Slavic magic and combat skills. While she was training, she would be given missions by both factions to do, so she could gain battle experience, which later was proven critical as she helped Russians in their struggles against Ottomans and Norse countries against the Holy Roman Empire. Though she also did supernatural missions like assassinations and/or being an ambassador for both factions. As their time for training was nearing its end, elsha decided to make Issei do one last thing before ending it. Now Issei, I will show you something that could be useful to you in the future. So close your eyes and concentrate hard and try to manifest your gear here and then enter it. I will help you in this, elsha told him in her calm and sweet voice. Nodding, Issei did what he was instructed, but even after 5 minutes, he couldn't go past the bringing his gear. So elsha decided to give him a little magic boost. Taking his hands in hers, ignoring his insecurity, she started concentrating and transferring small bursts of magic to him. Issei would lie if he did say that he didn't enjoy elsha holding his hands. Her soft and gentle skin, her soft smile and warm voice, her killer body, the big breast was really turning Issei on, and his blush becomes the even more crimson if possible. He was barely controlling himself from groping her or pinning her down. But he also knew that even if he could gain an advantage of surprise, it would only last shorter than a second before elsha would beat the shit out of him. So for now, until become stronger, he would wait and hope that maybe there is a chance to bring her back to life. But that didn't mean that he couldn't check her out and make a genuine scan of her features. Issei. Concentrate, I know that you are a highly hormonal teen, but this for your own good. Elsha scolded him a little, seeing him check her out. Not that she minded at all, she knew what effect she had on him and she knew that he was in puberty, but for now she needed him to focus. Sorry. Issei apologies, bowing his head down, hoping that she wasn't mad at him. Though elsha just smiled at him. He was way too honest and innocent. Even if he was a perv, he didn't try to lie to her about it. That was one of the things that she started to like about him. His honesty and his will. She saw the game that he fought against Riser and she was genuinely surprised that he was that strong, even though he managed to unlock his gear only 2 months ago. Don't worry, eyes, I'm not mad, but I need you to focus, and after that, you will take a short break and go to Diedrich for more training. Okay, sweetie, she told him gently as she stroked his cheek, giggling a little as she saw his face turn from red to white at the mention of Diedrich and training in an instant. Calming himself a little bit, he nodded and continued to do what he was again instructed. After few more attempts, he finally able to enter it. What he saw was all a blur, but before he could continue to focus on it, he was thrown out of it. Opening his eyes, he saw that elsha had a big grin on her beautiful face. Raising an eyebrow only made elsha laugh. Oof, that was a good attempt, eyes. I'm proud of you. You managed to be in it for 10 seconds. I honestly expected you to be there for 2 to 3 max. Why did you want me to do it anyway? It was hard as hell doing it, Issei said as he felt exhausted. Oof, that's for me to know and you, sweetie, to find out, elsha replied in a sing-song tone with a wink that made Issei red. Oh okay, elsha, he stated nervously, a little bit feeling his blush worsen. Now eyes, it's time to go and training with Diedrich. Good luck, you will need it, and have fun, was the last thing Elsha said before snapping her fingers, sending Issei towards Diedrich. Issei saw the mischievous smile she had when she told him that final part, causing him pale knowing that his partner was a battle maniac. XXXXXXXX training with Diedrich proved to be just like Issei had imagination. He would get scorched, bruised, sent flying around, screaming in pain and nearly dead. Though just like Elsha said, when he woke up he didn't feel tired or injured. But he could still felt the pain he felt in the mindscape, and that made him flinch every now and then just from the though. As his remaining days, until the wedding night, passed by, he felt that he still needed more power before he was ready to get at that damned phoenix that nearly murdered him in the game. As the time of the party neared closer, Issei decided to ask Diedrich and Elsha if there is anything else that he could do to gain even just a bit more power to defeat that bird. There is a way to gain more power, but Elsha started to answer him until she trailed of letting Diedrich finish it. But partner, you will need to sacrifice a part of your body for me to feed you more of my power. But it will also make you even more vulnerable to dragon-slaying items and magic. Diedrich finished it, making Issei widen his eyes. So, if I want to beat that damned fired chicken, I need to give you a part of my body? Issei questioned, wanting to confirm what Elsha and his partner told him. Yes, Issei. If you want to beat him, you need to give a part as an offering to Diedrich. That will give you enough power to enter Balance Breaker and beat him. But know this, when you do this there is no turning back from it. Think about it carefully, eyes. Also, note that when you do that you will start getting greater friends and enemies even more and quicker, since your dragon aura would strengthen. Elsha explained it to him. Issei started thinking about what both of them told him. Even though he didn't want to do it, to gain more power this way, he knew that it was necessary to win. If he was honest with himself, he would much prefer to win it with his own power, but he knew that at this point in time that it was impossible. But if he won, he would be a step closer to his freedom, and maybe down the line he would be able to help someone else break free from the chains that locked her away. Sure, gaining new, even more powerful enemies is very bad, but the extra power could help a lot more in the long run. Seeing more pros than cons, Issei decided to go with it. Diedrich, what part of my body you want? Issei asked finally. Eyes, are you 100% sure about this? Elsha questioned. Yes, Elsha. I thought out all of the pros and cons, and honestly, there is a lot more pros than cons in the long run. He answered her before he again asked his dragon. So partner, have you decided which part? With a heavy sigh, Diedrich told him, your left arm, Issei Hyodo. That's the payment, Diedrich, the Red Dragon Emperor, want for the power I will grant you. Issei, you need to formally say, Issei Hyodo, wielder of the booster gear, accept your demand, Diedrich, the Red Dragon Emperor. Elsha explained the rest of the procedure to him. Nodding his head, Issei repeated what Elsha told him. Issei Hyodo, wielder of the booster gear, accept you demand, Diedrich, the Red Dragon Emperor. Very well, my power is now at your disposal. When Diedrich finished his sentence, Issei felt his power skyrocket. He felt like he could conquer the whole world with. Just to inform you, partner, you are now able to enter the Balance Breaker, but there is a catch, you can only stay in it for 10s max. Diedrich informed him, getting Issei's attention. Though what Diedrich didn't tell him was that he was already at the point where he could enter his Balance Breaker. Though he hoped that if he pushed hard enough, Issei's emotions will unlock it. Really, Diedrich? Can I use it now? Issei asked, stunned that the legendary move was now within hand's reach. Yes, partner. But remember, to beat the bird you need to break his spirit or to exhaust him to the point where his regeneration won't work. Diedrich reminded him. Issei, I could help you in that, though I would also need payment for granting this to you. Elsha suddenly spoke, making Issei and Diedrich stunned. You can? Though what is the payment? Issei asked. It's really simple actually, but I will tell you about it after the fight. Though do I have your word that you will keep the promise of doing whatever I ask for a payment? Elsha told him. I shall keep my promise, Elsha. I will do anything that you ask of me. He answered firmly and honestly, making Elsha smile. Very good, eyes. When the time comes I will give you enough strength to beat the chicken. Alrighty, then it's time to crash the party. Beat the crap out of that fried chicken and save that bitch from him. Issei shouted as he pumps his fist upright. Taking the pamphlet that Graphia gave him, Issei flared out a little bit of his power, making the magic circular appear under him, teleporting him to the place of the party in a flash of light that made him close his eyes. XXXXXXXXXXXX. As soon as he opened his eyes, Issei was speechless at what he saw. In front of him was a huge European castle that had massive stone walls with also massive watchtowers that dominated everything except the castle's main building itself. Wow! Look at this place, it's massive, Issei thought as he entered the compounds of the castle. While making his way towards the main building, he realized that he was in the Phoenix territory. They had many sculptures of the legendary bird, all in pure gold with fire coming out of their mouths, pictures of many heads of the House of Phoenix. Though when they were getting closer to the chamber where the wedding was to happen, all three of them saw something that made their blood boil. It was a picture of the Great War from what the trio could tell. But what made their anger skyrocket was that in it was shown a none other than Diedrich in his former full glory, fatally stabbed by a spear of fire that went from one side all the way through the other with his blood all around the ground. If Issei's anger was huge, then Diedrich's was extremely massive. Issei was terrified as he felt his partner anger. He could practically feel Diedrich fighting himself to control the rage he got from the picture. Issei quickly jumped and tore the picture into pieces, getting a thank you from the heavenly dragon. Getting closer to the chamber, Issei was met with a few dozen guards that were positioned to guard the entrance of the party so no one could interfere. But to Issei, it was all but a nuisance as he manifested his gear and charged at them. XXXXXX. As the little battle for the entrance to the party was underway, in the grand chamber many high-class devils and heads of the remaining pillars, their peerages, and mouths were seen talking and enjoying the party and what would happen soon. Both Riser's and Ria's peerage were present. Though while one group was happy, the other was very depressed at the thought of their master marring that pig. Though all of them were unaware that soon they will meet a very pissed off dragon that was in a rage and off for blood. Soon enough Riser appeared in an elegant informal clothing with a white suit with red accessories, white paints, and black shoes. Getting everyone's attention as he walks a little bit forward before speaking. Hello everyone, I Riser Phoenix. Welcome you all to this great marriage between both the House of Phoenix and House of Gremory. Now I will introduce you to my beautiful future wife. With a snap of his fingers, Rias Gremory appeared in all her glory in white wedding, dressed with white gloves that went all the way to her forearms with crimson high. A huge applaud and cheers from the mass of people. But suddenly it stopped as they heard screams coming from the other side of the double doors. Before anyone could question what was happening, the double doors were destroyed in a massive explosion that ripped through the room, making a huge smokescreen. Many were wondering what happened. Elders and heads of the other pillars were demanding an explanation from the Phoenix members, but before they could answer, a cold voice cut them short. Damn guards, I told them to stay out of my way. Oh well, they won't bother me anymore. The voice spoke. Who are you? What are you doing here? Can't you see that there is a special event going on? Riser shouted to the figure, only getting an energy blast to his chest as an answer to his questions, making him grunt a little as he hit the wall behind him from the blast. Riser got to his feet, wiping a small amount of blood from his lip before he regenerated like nothing happened. You damned fried chicken, shut up. Or the next attack is going to your head and I won't go easy on it like previously. Issei yelled as the smoke cleared, letting people in the room see him with his gear out. You peasant. What are you doing here? How did you come here in the first place? Riser shouted again, which made Issei create an orb of energy in his hand, readying his attack again. I'm here to take back Rias Gremory, and if it means I need to beat your shitty ass, then I will do it. You belong in a KFC anyways. Issei shouted, making some of them gasp and others to get angry at the insult, particularly Riser. Though when Rias saw Issei, she let alone tear fall at the thought of him coming to her rescue, while all of the members of the Orc surrounded Issei to stop any guard that might try and stop him. Seeing them, Issei stopped gathering energy for his attack. Oofoof Issei. Nice of you to come. Hope you don't mind our little help. Akeno told him in her sadistic tone as lightning was dancing around her fingers. Nice to see you come also, Issei. Kiba also greeted him as he created two swords in his hands. You're late, was Kaniko's greeting to him, though he saw that she was grateful that he came to help Rias. Finally you showed your lazy ass here, you weakling. Rainier told him, making him sweat drop. Sorry to keep you waiting guys, I needed to take care of some annoying pets down the hall. Issei replied to them as she scratches his head a little bit. Everyone stand down. A calm voice full of power and authority told them as everyone stopped and released their weapons and magic. The owner of the voice was a tall and handsome red-haired man with soft blue eyes. He was wearing what Issei could guess a royal armor. He could almost immediately say that he was like a Rias, only a male version of her and with a fuck tone more power. Lord Sears X Lucifer. What is the meaning of this? One of the elders spoke, not liking the idea of a Mao interfering. It's really simple actually. I very much enjoyed a rating game between both Riser and my little sister. Though I would say that the finish was a little anticlimactic. It was still a good match though. Sirzex told them, simply, clearly hiding what his intentions were. So Lord Lucifer, you say that the match between both Rias and Riser was all for nothing? Riser questioned. No, the match was for real, Riser, and I applaud you for your power and your extremely good use of it. It would be bad if a Mao said that the result of it wasn't good. It would look bad to the older generation. Sirzex smoothly told him. Then what are you saying, Sirzex? Another red-haired man told him, making Sirzex turn to him with a small, barely noticeable smirk. Like I said, father, I plan on making this event even more spectacular. Tell me, what is better than a battle between a phoenix and dragon? He asked his father. Seeing his father nod after thinking a little bit made Sirzex make a small smile before turning back to Issei and Riser. You boy, what is your name? He asked in a voice still full of authority, but it wasn't harsh, it was soft and warm. Nodding, Issei replied the man. My name is Issei Hyodo, a student of the Kuo Academy, the current Red Dragon Emperor, and pawn of Rias Gremory. Very well, Issei. What are your intentions for coming here? Sirzex asked while faking his curiosity, which little surprised Issei. He is a good actor, I will give him that. Issei thought as he decided to play this little game. It's simple, Lord Lucifer. I'm here to bring Rias Gremory back. It's boring back home without her being there. And I'm sure that she could find a better husband than this fried chicken. Issei replied with a small bow at the end, not missing a small smirk coming from the red-haired man. Riser, what do you say about showing us one last time the beautiful power at your disposal? It would make this evening even more entertaining for both people here and Rias and me. Sirzex asked with a little narrowed eyes, daring him to refuse. Seeing that look, Riser's sweat dropped a little bit before nodding. If the great Lord Lucifer asks, then Riser would be more than happy to make his final show of power. Giving him a nod, Sirzex turned to Issei and asked something that shocked all the people in the hall. Issei Hyodo, what would you like if you win this little match? It could be anything you desire. Power, woman, peerage, gold. Lord, what are you saying? How can you do this? An elder shouted in rage, seeing what Sirzex was doing. What? I asked him to fight for the entertainment for my little sister's wedding party, so it's only reasonable that we give him something in return. He answered in laid-back voice before returning his attention to Issei. Issei honestly would have liked to just get his freedom back. But that would do more harm than good right now, and he made a deal with Grafia, so he won't turn his back on her now. While that is all nice and attractive what you told Lord Lucifer, I ask that when I beat him you give Rias Gremory freedom back and make it so that she won't be thrown into another marriage agreement without her consent. Issei replied, getting a nod of acceptance from the red-haired Mao. Good, that could be achieved, of course, if you win, Issei Hyodo. Now let's get this battle started. Sirzex told him as he snapped his finger, teleporting everyone at the battlefield that resembled a ring with 4 king pieces on 4 corners. XXXXXX in the middle of the field, Issei and Riser stood glaring at each other. Issei was still in his school uniform while Riser changed in his fighting attire with a long white-sleeved shirt with a V-neck that showed his chest and black pants with also black shoes. You peasant, you will pay for this. Riser will destroy you. Riser told him in treating tone as he took his stance. Issei, however, completely ignored him as he turned to Rias. Permission to promote? He asked, getting a nod from teary-eyed Rias. Nodding, Issei also took his stance as the gear appeared and started boosting him. You can do this, eyes, was all that members of the Orc thought at the same moment, watching what their comrade would do and hoping for the best. Grafia suddenly appeared in between them, making it clear that she would be a referee in this battle just like in the rating game. Grafia Lucifuge will be the referee for this match. If I see anything that goes against the rules I will intervene, and the one who broke the rules will automatically lose. Is this understood? Grafia said to both males, only getting a nod as a response. Nodding back, Grafia announced something that shocked Issei and Orc members. This will be a one-on-one battle between Lord Riser and Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor. The stakes are as such. Should Riser win, Issei Hyodo would be immediately transferred to Phoenix family and the marriage would go through without questions. But should Issei Hyodo win, the marriage would be dissolved and Rias Gremory would be free from any other married agreements in the future. Getting over his shock, Issei steadied himself before the battle of his life. Now, without any further ado, let the battle begin. Grafia said as she teleported away. Promotion Queen. Issei shouted as soon as Grafia left, feeling power swelling in his blood as he started to get his surprise underway. Riser would be worried if you were given 3 to 6 months more to train, but in this state, however, Riser will crush you with ease. Riser told him as he stood his ground waiting for Issei to attack him. You know you are right about that. I'm not genius with magic like Akano. I'm not expert with a sword like Kiba. Nor am I good with pure strength like Kaneko or with healing like Rainier, but you know what? I don't care that I'm not good in any of that. I will show you what happens when you try to kill and insult the heavenly dragon. Do it DDRAIG. Issei spoke, his voice was in the being normal, but it ended in a powerful roar that scared most of the audience. Riser, this is what you unleashed. Hope you are happy. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Scale Mail. Issei roared, full of bloodlust that was enhanced by Diedrig. Welsh Dragon, Overbooster. Diedrig roared as he also started fueling Issei's strength even further. As soon as the devils heard the announcement coming from both Diedrig and Issei, they knew that Riser was fucked. He may be strong, but again it's the titanic powers now at Issei's command. It was like trying to push the mountain. The red flash of light erupted where Issei stood, blocking everyone's sight of him. As the light finally died out, everyone was shocked at what they saw. Issei was in red draconic armor that looked intimidating to look at. There were 6 green gems, 2 on his hands and 1 on each of his knees. His draconic helmet had 2 green eyes that made him even more frightening to anyone that faced him. That's a forbidden move. One of the elders said in shock. Hearing that, even the 4 mouths paid close attention to the battle, waiting to see what the legendary Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker could do. Now the true battle between the bird and the dragon began. Partner, remember, you have only 10s to beat that damned bird. After that, your balance breaker would wear off and you won't be able to use it again today. Diedrig smoothly lied to his host, since he with Elsha knew that Issei, with his training with both of them, reached that point was he needed strong emotions to bring it out. Eyes dear. Use this opportunity to inflict as much damage you can before you return in your base form. Elsha instructed him, also hiding the same fact that Diedrig hidden. Nodding, Issei rocketed towards Riser, reading a punch as Riser quickly released his wing and shot towards skies. Issei couldn't stop in time and he collided into Kingpiece that was completely destroyed by the impact that occurred. Lifting himself from the rubble, Issei spread out his dragon wings and took to the skies where Riser was waiting for him. Reaching where Riser was waiting for him, he asked in a mocking tone. What's wrong, you Riser? I thought you would crush me, but all I see is you running away from me. Why, you insolent brat. Riser will show you the power even you filthy dragons are scared of. Riser shouted as he charged at Issei at full speed. When they heard his insult, both Diedrig and Issei were pissed, so Elsha did what was necessary to win this battle. Issei, quickly inhale air and on my mark relist it. Diedrig, when he attacks you, transfer as much power as you can. Elsha explained a quick plan that would at least wear down Phoenix magic stamina a little. Nodding, Issei did what he was told as he relisted his helmet and took a big gulp of air to prepare a fire breath attack that he training with Diedrig, while Diedrig started boosting Issei as much as possible. Boost, 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 boost. Diedrig's voice was heard by everyone, widening their eyes a little bit. As the phoenix close enough for the attack to hit him point blank, Elsha gave her signal. 7. Issei, Diedrig, do it now, Elsha shouted in Issei's mind. Take this, you fucking chicken. Issei shouted as he relisted his helmet and sent a torment of fire that at first didn't do anything to Riser, that is until Diedrig did his part in Elsha's plan. Transfer. Diedrig roared as he sent all collected boost at the torment of fire that engulfed the phoenix. The result were spectacular. Riser was seen falling from the skies and Issei was right on his back, reading the punch that he hoped would break his spirit. But Riser quickly regained his bearing and flown to the other side, making Issei hit the ground hard, breaking it. Damned, we weren't quick enough to damage him more. Issei cursed as he stood up again and charged at the phoenix. Riser will admit that was clever and hurt like hell, but now it's my turn. Riser said as he also again charged at Issei with great speed, making both of them disappeared only to appear when their fists connected with each other's face. Issei's helmet broke from the impact of Riser's fist, but what shocked Riser was that instead of Issei's brown eyes, they were now green like the jewel in the booster gear. What happened to your eyes, peasant? Why are they green? Riser asked Issei as they disengaged from each other. What are you blabbering about, you damned KFC? Issei asked as he put some distance from Riser. Your eyes are now green. Why? Riser again asked, still in shock. IV. Don't know, don't care. Now where were we? Issei shouted as he again started to charge at him. But as soon as he took a few steps towards Riser, he heard Diedrig's voice that made him shocked. Time's up. Diedrig announced as Issei's balance breaker vanished, making Issei face hit the ground. What? How? Diedrig, you said 10 seconds. Time hasn't expired yet. Issei shouted at the Great Red Dragon Emperor. You used more power and that put your body where it can't balance breaker anymore. Diedrig swiftly lied. Come on, you can do it, partner. You need just a little push. Diedrig secretly thought to himself. Damned, Issei mattered to himself as he felt something lifting him by the neck. Now it's time to knock you out and Rias will be my wife finally. You put up a good fight and like Riser told you, if you had 3 more months you would defeat me. So don't feel bad, you did well. Riser told him honestly as he started to suffocate Issei, hoping to cut his airflow so he would pass out. Issei's image began to become murky as he felt his body given up, but at that moment Elsha decided to try and make him snap back to reality and bring out his true balance breaker. Oofoof, so you are giving up that easily, eyes? I thought that you would put a much better fight than that. So it looks like what you promised Grafia about saving her sister and I were all a lie. Elsha sighed as she faked being hurt by him, hoping to force his emotions out. What I tried my best agents him, but it wasn't enough. Issei sadly replied. So then that means that you forfeit your freedom, and Grafia's sisters and lose your chance on taking me out on a date because you are weak. Should have known that. You know what to think, that Phoenix will humiliate you even more than Rias. Elsha decided to give one last shot before giving up and forcefully taking his body and beating that damn Phoenix. Hearing that, Issei's eyes widened. How could he forget why he was here in the first place? He was here to win his freedom and to help Grafia. But what Elsha said made him shocked. Is there a way to bring you back? He asked her. Nodding, Elsha gave him all that he needed to know. There is, but you need to win this here and now, so Issei, do it. Become the strongest Red Dragon Emperor ever. Elsha shouted within his mind while Diedrig boosted Issei's emotions and Elsha's voice for Issei to finally break the barrier. Riser suddenly started to feel pain as his arm that was choking Issei started to hurt badly. Releasing him, he saw something that made him pale in fear. Red light again exploded from Issei as he was engulfed in it. As the light died down after a few moments, Issei was in his armor. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Diedrig suddenly roared, his voice battle hungry and out for blood. Huh. I thought you said I can't use Balance Breaker again, Diedrig? Issei asked as he felt his armor back on him. That was a lie to force you to unlock it by your emotions. I will explain later now, though we have a chicken that needs to be roasted. I want it with extra sauce. Elsha said, making both males chuckled before Elsha did what she promised. Issei, I will lend you my strength, use it well. With that said, Issei felt his power rising even more to the point that he would easily fight any high-class devil. But what made it strange is that he felt from his left hand it was like a holy energy. Decided to question it later, he charged at Riser quicker than he could dodge, impending his armored fist into his stomach, making the Phoenix spit blood. Where did you get this power? Riser questioned as he felt the holy power in his armored fist. Good friend of mine gave it to me. Now say your goodbye. Issei told him before sending a punch at his face. Wait, this. Riser couldn't finish his sentence because at that moment Issei's fist connected with his face, sending him flying towards the undamaged king's pieces that were destroyed as Riser slammed into it. Issei walked toward the fallen Riser, wanting to finish him off once and for all. But before he could get to him, a small figure teleported in front of him and stood there, blocking him from finishing this. You little girl, move aside, I have no business with you. He said to her entreating voice, but to girl's courage, she didn't budge. I won't let you hurt my brother, she quietly told him as he felt him put his hand on her head and pat her slowly, making her blush a little from the gesture. Riser is really lucky to have you as his sister. Don't worry, this battle is done anyway. With that, Issei turned around, missing a huge blush that came over the girl's face. This battle is over, whiner as Issei Hyodo. Grafia announced as he felt him being transported back to the hall where he deactivated his armor. A deal is a deal, Rias Gremory is free. Sirzex told everyone as Rias and all of the orc hugged Issei tightly with tears in their eyes. Thank you, Issei. Rias softly to him. You welcome, so let's go home. Issei told them as he and the group went outside, where Issei turned the pamphlet around and from it, A beautiful griffin appeared with silver wings and a mighty roar. Well, that's one way of traveling. Issei spoke, making everyone laugh. Come on Rias. Let's go home, guys talk to you in the morning, he said as she lifted Rias into her seat and getting into his. With one mighty swing of its powerful wing, griffin took to the skies, leaving the orc members alone on the ground below. As they were on their way back, Rias tried everything to get Issei attention, but to her luck, she saw him staring into the distance clearly and thought. Frowning, she lightly shook him, making him turn to her. You need something, Rias? He asked. Nodding, Rias spoke. What would you want for a reward for saving me? That made Issei think for a few moments before he turns around and told her something that she didn't expect. I want to train more, so I can help someone in need. You don't want my virginity or my first kiss? Rias asked, hoping to draw his perverted side out. Nah, I would like to train more, he told her, and after that, the ride to Kuo was in silence. XXXXXX. As they finally gotten to Kuo, Rias decided to from now on sleep with Issei, so she announced it to him. From now on I would move in with you. That way we could expand our bond even more. But to her shock, he just outright refused her. Hell no, I did saved you, but that doesn't mean that I will let you do whatever you want with me. I'm off to sleep, sleep well princess. Issei told her before she could say anything to stop him. She had forgotten that he was still mad at her for what she did and that he would soon find his way out. But what Issei didn't know is that Rias was falling in love with him, and that would create a whole new set of problems for him. Done. And for those that aren't familiar with Russian titles, boyar is a noble class of citizen in feudal Slavic countries. Also, to how Issei got his holy power, it's because of Elsha transferring it into his gear. Note that she was a champion of both head gods of factions. Perun is Slavic head god and god of thunder and equivalent to Odin from the Norse. Issei peerage, king. Is Hyodo queen. Mutated piece, knight. Knight. Bishop. Revel bishop. Rook. Rook. Elsha, predecessor booster gear, mutated piece. Model Elizabeth Mabel from Freezing. Pawn. Chelsea, 6x, pawn. Murayama pawn. Katase, first, previous ch9 of 36.